Good afternoon. This is a hearing of the Chatham Conservation Commission being held on April 5th, 2023, in accordance with the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Town of Chatham Wetlands Protection Bylaw and Regulations. My name is Bob Rawls, and I serve as the chair. Today's hearing is being broadcast live on Channel 18 and is being recorded for the on-demand archives available on the town's website. It's being conducted in person, by phone, and by video conference. The agenda, instructions on how to attend, and copies of documents for review are posted on the town's website. To all participants, whether attending by phone or online, please remain muted unless you have been recognized by the chair. When recognized, please identify yourself for the record. If you're attending by phone, you can mute and unmute by using *6. If you are online and you are not a commissioner, please keep your camera turned off unless you have been recognized. You can indicate that you wish to speak by using the raise hand feature in Teams. So that we have a record of a quorum, I'll now ask each commissioner to indicate their presence. Vice Chair Bob Del Vecchio.
Present.
Janet Williams.
Present.
Karen Latin is not here, I believe.
Present.
Oh, she's here. All right.
I am by phone.
Okay, good. Thank you, Karen. Mary Sullivan.
Present.
Elise Gordon.
Present.
Cheryl Meservey.
Present.
And I am here, so we have a full house and a quorum. On first Wednesdays, we have a hard stop at 4 o'clock due to another hearing in this room. This gives us 3 hours. We also have a lengthy agenda with 15 or more items. This means, my calculations in simple math, an average of about 12 minutes per item, not including a needed break. Accordingly, I'm going to place a timer in front of me, limiting each application to, at least at the beginning, 12 minutes. I'll have to cut off any presentations that become overly wordy, and we'll need to continue any discussion that becomes protracted. So for applicants, please be brief and assume that we have read your materials, and we on the commission will also strive to be concise. Nikki Smith, Chatham's conservation agent, will now lead us through the agenda.
Hello. First, we have a request for field change for 20 Jericho Lane, 20 Jericho Lane LLC, map 10B, parcel B2, SE10 3467, 3525, and 3541. Installation of an 80-foot long by 3-foot high boulder wall, landscaping, and change in stepper configuration from the pool patio and deck to the driveway area. And Susan Ledoux is here to speak to this project.
Hello, Susan Ledoux from Eastward Companies. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, wonderful. So as Nikki said, we are requesting a field change to install an 80-foot long, 3-foot high boulder wall on the southwest side of the site, outside of the 50-foot buffer, to stabilize the grade and create a more walkable area around the house. And then Mr. and Mrs. Lebovitz had engaged Brett Roberts of Arrowwood Horticulture to make some revisions to the landscape plan around the house and some stuff leading from the pool patio deck area to the garage, and also some mitigation plans. And so if you look at the second page of my letter, the proposed field change items will increase the site coverage in the 50 to 100 foot buffer by 357 square feet with the reconfigured steppers, which are 147 square feet, and the installation of the boulder wall, 210 square feet. And what I did not have in this is the additional mitigation or landscape plantings, native shrubs, plants, and some trees by Brett Roberts, and Nikki had asked for that information, and that is about 572 square feet of additional plantings between the 50, 100, and then there are, if you'll see those sheets from Brett Roberts, there is the landscape area in front of the house. It's outside of the 100-foot area, so I didn't calculate that, as I know that's not in your jurisdiction, but he did use a lot of native plantings around the foundation and the driveway island. And that's our presentation. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I want to start off by saying I'm not a paper person. I don't receive any of these documents in paper form. I'm not the only one of us who do that. The the images of the planting plan were 68 kilobytes. And it's not possible for me to read the text except the very largest text. I cannot tell what's on those pictures. So I'm at a loss. I don't know if the other digital people, I guess that's you, Janet, and Elise, whether or not you're, yeah, I
I
can't.
can see the area, and thank you for color coding it, but what I can't tell are,
It's hard to read the words.
right, the numbers and the
Yeah.
species.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the way we received it as well. I can, if you'd like me to run through the species, I believe they're all native plantings, and I believe Brett is on a conservation commission in the town that he lives in. So he does know what is required as far as native plants. Let's see. He has proposed, if I can read it on mine, because it's very small on mine as well. Airwood viburnum. He's got fern, red spice, clethra. Let's see, inkberry, blueberry, eastern red cedar, bayberry, sweet fern, sweet gale, and not sure what that is, sweet bay magnolia. And he has a mixture of that. And then he has proposed meadowgrass, native meadowgrass mix throughout both areas, the orange and the green. And so the orange does represent, if you're able to see that on your screen, the new mitigation plant areas where there was previously lawn proposed. So when that's added to the second sheet, which is the rear of the home, and there's a retaining wall on that side, that's 572 square feet of additional native plantings.
All right. Does anybody have a paper copy that is readable? Okay. I'll open it up to, anybody else have questions while I'm going to stare at this?
Yeah, just as I'm doing the math here, Susan, the total increase in coverage from the boulder wall and the steppers is, what,
357 square feet. That's 147 for the steppers additional, and then 210 for the boulder wall. The boulder wall obviously is new. There were steppers where these reconfigured steppers are. So those were taken out and these put in. These are more natural looking steppers, but they do increase the coverage by 147 square feet.
Okay.
Sorry, Susan, you said 357 square feet of increase?
Total, yes.
Okay, thanks.
And we get 572 of increased mitigation by area, by size, right?
Yes.
We're moving toward looking at that ratio, both in terms of size and in terms of numbers of plants, but we're not exactly there yet, so.
Okay.
'cause-
Yep, that's area.
Okay.
Yes.
Anybody else? Bob?
Hi, Susan.
Hi.
The boulder wall is there now, correct? It has been installed?
It is, when the site work started, once the house and pool were in, it was just, if you've been out to the site, the project supervisor, just Chris Brent, he said this is just, it was difficult for people to even move
It's a
around the site.
Steep grade.
It was steep, and I know Nikki met out there with Chris, so she knows what I'm talking about. And the boulder wall, it's not too invasive, but it does the trick at helping with stabilizing that bank and just for someone to be able to get around the house. So
there-
it was installed prior to, yes.
Okay, so there's grass being grown there now, but that's going to be replaced with all these natives. Is that the story?
Yeah, let me just look back. All the natives are coming off of that sunroom area. I believe the grass, that grass within that area, that native grass mix is going to be along the wall.
Yeah.
And then the native plants will be along that other retaining wall that's just, I want to say, north of, and closer to the house in the sunroom area.
So presently, there is grass with an erosion control fabric growing there now, but that will be removed and the natives will be planted instead, correct?
Yes, Teresa Sprague, I think, is going to finish up her work. And so you'll be seeing that also before we ask for any sort of certificate of compliance. But believe we have to take photos when everything is complete for your file. Is that
Okay.
correct?
Yes.
Yes, for the COC, we like to have photos.
Okay, okay, yes.
And some of the lawn has been removed and more natives are going in?
Yes, it is. Yeah, so they just saw that as a bonus, less to maintain. They'll get those native plants started and then that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Anyone else?
I have a couple questions.
Okay, Karen,
Karen,
please, yeah.
first of all, this is just sort of bookkeeping. This is the third field change request. How many field changes do we allow?
Good point,
It
Karen.
just seems like, yeah.
I do,
So it just seems like they keep coming with more things and probably things that they didn't think they could get through the first time. So we keep approving like the pool, you know, with the second field change request. And so I'm just concerned about what's going on. And then my other things were, and nobody's mentioned it yet, I'd love to know why the pier is larger and no further away from the water, because we really don't like structures within the NDZ, and they're trying to put a shed there. So those are my things.
just let me say, Karen, about the number of field changes. I totally agree. I think we should call a halt to them on this project at this point, after this one. It becomes, the record becomes
I agree.
really hard to untangle later on. It just becomes a mess. As far
Well, and go ahead.
as far as the shed is concerned, I think that's something we in effect already approved when we approved this project. So
Oh, okay.
I don't know if we can
I
at this
didn't
stage
see it.
for this field change, within the
Yeah,
context of a field change, we can have that moved.
Yeah, I didn't see it on the one prior to this, but maybe it was. Okay, and did we approve a larger slip? Because it's showing a larger slip than what is there now.
I can't make the word out, Karen. Larger what?
Float at the
Float.
end of
Float.
the dock.
Yeah, we had a long hearing about that.
That was
Yeah,
a
this was the one that they wanted to move the dock to the other side.
Right.
Right? Yeah.
Right.
So we did allow a little bit of reconfiguration to the, it's
Okay.
more or less in the existing footprint, but we did allow some reconfiguration.
Yeah, it does appear to be a decent amount bigger. And I didn't remember approving that. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Karen. I was able to look at Bob's printed copy of the species, and I think in general he looked pretty good. There are a few cultivars in there, but not very many. So does anyone have any objection to the field change per se?
I would just like the field change, I don't know, Nikki, if it's possible, but I would like it noted that it is an after-the-fact field change for the boulder wall. It is not generally acceptable to go ahead and do the work in a resource area before you've asked for the permission to do it. So just for the record, to note that we're approving it after the fact.
Yeah, and I just want to point out, if you could, you or the landscape could print more readable plans, and I mean, you can mail them if he's, far away, or drop them off, just so that we can make sure we can read all the species.
Will do.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we approve the after-the-fact field change for 20 Jericho Lane.
Now,
Latin second.
she's gonna do it.
Oh,
Okay.
go ahead.
Roll call vote. Elise.
Aye.
Cheryl.
Aye.
Bob.
Aye.
Janet.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
And I vote aye. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.
All right, the next field change is 63 Shell Drive Development LLC, map 14K, parcel 15, W53, SE10 3490. Turf stone pervious pavers for access to the guest house and a small retaining wall.
Hello.
Hi, how you doing? My name's Dan Russell from Shell Drive Development LLC. And can you put the screen up and I'll...
Yeah, I'll get up in just a second. You want the plan or the pavers?
The plan's great. This is a pretty minor change, and I'll definitely help out your average time limit, I hope. The area that's in green, those are the steps that were designed initially and were approved initially. There's always been need, obviously, of a retaining wall on the left side because it's going down a pretty much 1 to 1 to 1.5 slope. Now that I heard talking about the pervious on the last approval, my pervious will actually go down because each one of those steps, they're double steps and they're wide, and they're approximately 3 times 6, so there's 18, and there's 9 of them. So it actually adds up to 162 square feet of less pervious with what we want to
Are
do.
you talking pervious or impervious?
Impervious, sorry.
Impervious, okay.
Sorry about that. And all we're doing is we're changing those steps to pervious pavers because we think it's really, I have a buyer now, we're closing next week, and they have concerns if somebody were to ever to get some type of injury or some type of emergency in the guest house, having those steps there would be a nuisance. And we think a little bit wider, 8 to 9 foot wide, continuous rolling down pervious paver path would be much better for access. I mean, I have no problem doing it the way it's been designed, but I just think it's a much more sensible way to do it for safety reasons.
So this path ends at the house?
No, yeah, so basically, this here ends at the bottom of the steep hill.
I'm sorry, could you
You have to stay.
Oh, sorry.
stay near the microphone?
Oh, sorry. So, yeah, at the bottom of the steep hill, that's where what I'm proposing stops. The rest of it will be shell or stone path, just like the initial design. It starts right at the 50 foot from the coastal bank at the top of the hill in the backyard of the house. It doesn't go to the house. All the lawn area that's proposed for the rear of the house stays like it is, and all this is to get down the steep embankment. If that makes sense.
Okay. Because I was confused, and you're talking about emergency vehicles and so forth.
Oh, no, you're not driving a car down there. I would think it would be a stretcher. It just makes for easier access. You can't drive a car. If you drove a car to that location, you're driving off lawn with sprinkler, with landscape light, you would never drive across it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just thought- I thought there was something in your application
You'd ruin your irrigation.
talked about that.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
so, all right. I do want to mention that when we're done discussing this, there's another potential issue that I observed when I was there.
Okay.
Looking at this, but we'll deal with that
Sure.
shortly.
Yeah, right now, it's a pretty wide access area, right, to the guest cottage
Yes.
because of the construction.
Yeah, that all gets
Yeah.
mitigation plannings and redone. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's exactly at the limit of work. Where you see the hay bale silt fence, that's the exact limit of clearing, limit of work.
So in the end, it's only going to be 6 to 8 feet.
Exactly. Yeah, oh, actually, when we get down to the bottom of the hill, I'm just talking about the steep portion going down the hill. The rest of the access to the guest cottage will be like the width of a regular walkway, like 4 feet. And it will be pervious. It'll be probably crushed stone.
For the path.
A path, yeah, a winding path that goes through all the mitigation
Okay.
plannings. Yeah.
Good, I'm glad to hear you say that, because when I was there, I became excited, because it does not look like what we'd approved, and
Oh, no, it's not going to be done. Yeah, the house will move, they're moving into the house in a couple of weeks. The guest cottage will not be done until midsummer.
Right.
So I won't start the
I think
SRTA compliance
first,
until
for
then.
those of us who were on the commission at the time this was approved, my recollection was, I did not realize that this would all be cleared out
Yeah.
and then restored. I thought that would just,
Oh, it's all on the plan. The restoration's all on the plan and in there.
when I looked at it, it didn't appear that way. But I'm glad to hear you say
Oh, yeah.
that it will be restored to the way the plan shows it.
That's right, and they're actually gonna ask to add some blueberry bushes and some other stuff that's friendly to the environment, because they want more plantings, and that will happen later on. But
Shouldn't be much
that's,
of a problem.
you know, when we start winding up the guest house, that will happen.
Yeah, all right. So as far as this proposed field change is concerned, what do we think here? Anybody? Objections to it? Okay.
Fine, less coverage.
Yeah.
No, it seems very, well, logical.
Yeah. Is this, the way this has been submitted, this is like a sort of a blow-up of a part of the site plan originally? Is that what we're seeing?
Yes, oh, it's a blow-up of the site plan that was approved, right?
Yeah.
The site plan that was approved when we went in for the field change for the guest cottage.
Yeah, just, Nikki, from a records-keeping perspective, would you want to have the site plan adjusted to show this, or is this blow-up manageable in terms of keeping all the records straight?
I think this is manageable because when we get the as-built, it will show
Exactly.
exactly what was put in.
All right. All right, well, thank you, and looking forward to the final product.
Great, thanks. That'll be next fall.
Make the motion that we approve the field change for 63 Shell Drive.
Latin second.
Roll call vote. Lelise?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Karen, do you want to be relieved from second duties since you're remote?
It doesn't matter to me, whatever, if it's better for you.
Yeah, it might-
I'm fine with somebody else.
Might be a little faster. I think Elise will do it. Yeah, so you can just,
Sure.
yeah, all right, thanks.
Okay, so I can just listen and when I have things to put in, I will.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Anyway,
Thank you very much.
thanks.
The final field change is 305 Main Street, Deborah and Christopher Howden, map 16C, parcel 33, SC10 3569. Shift the proposed retaining wall 4.5 feet to the west and extend length, increase pool patio area, decrease driveway parking area, and move generator to be adjacent to pool equipment. David Clark here.
Anybody?
Angela.
David Clark here. I thought we were going to discuss the change in the cottage.
Well,
But,
okay.
For this project, for the previous, or?
Pardon me?
This is Angela Tanner here. Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, looks like we have two field changes, one for the cottage demo rebuild, and then the one I just read.
Landscape, no.
So I'm not sure what happened there. So I guess, David, we will put you on the next agenda for your field change?
Yeah, I didn't get an idea as to when it was going to be heard. I knew that Angela had submitted the changes for today's meeting. I submitted my request the end of last week or the beginning of last week, but I didn't know what agenda it was going to be placed on. I can wait another week. That's fine with me.
Okay, we'll put this on for the next one.
This is Angela Tanner here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I thought that my mic wasn't working. I can actually respond to the field change request for the walls if that's what the part that's on the agenda, or are we waiting to do the whole thing at once?
They're two different applications, so we can do the wall, patio, pool, driveway area now.
Right, we had submitted that, I think, prior to David Clark's office finding out the issue with the cottage.
Yeah, it looks like about 3 days before David's.
Yes. So do you want me to explain what those field changes were?
Yes, explain what you want changed.
Okay, so we basically just wanted to do an even exchange of reallocate the impervious surface so that the pool area has a retaining wall that we wanted to move 4.5 feet closer to the driveway and increase the amount of pool patio. And then we would be removing an equal amount of driveway area. And then we also wanted to move the generator so that it's down near the pool equipment instead of up by the pool. So there's no net change in impervious surface, or there's 1 square foot less.
Okay. Can I ask a question or two then? When you say there's no change, the parking area, let's just call it the parking area that you're abandoning, that was pervious, right?
It was included in the impervious calculations. So everything that has been, the total amount of square footage that has been mitigated for is just being reallocated. So that area that's shown in red, the driveway,
Right.
that was included in the impervious surface calculation.
Is that because it was asphalt?
And maybe David Clark can actually chime in on this because they did the impervious calculations, but my understanding is that that area was included.
David Clark here. It was simply shown as site coverage. We don't differentiate between pervious and impervious. It's either green space or site coverage on our calculations.
Oh,
So that area was included in everything that was mitigated for.
what? So that's, okay, that's a little bit confusing to me, David.
Yeah, we've never considered pervious surfaces anything other than site coverage. So that's the only things we typically show on our site coverage calculations and the checklist that's part of the application. The checklist doesn't differentiate between pervious and impervious surfaces. It's either green space or not.
Yeah, I think others do it differently, so that's good to know. What was it supposed to be? Was it supposed to be, what was it intended to be?
It's either shell or gravel or a combination of the two.
All right, so we would consider that to be a pervious surface. And
For stormwater purposes, yes.
yes, and so this new addition to the pool patio, are those dry laid or wet laid?
They're dry laid.
Okay,
The entire pool patio is dry laid, but the total area of mitigation was calculated for a certain square footage, so we're still within what we had proposed.
right. That's fine. I just wanted to make sure that we were in reality swapping pervious
Right.
for pervious, aside from how this coverage is calculated. What will be there where the parking is now? I'm calling it parking. I don't know what you refer to it as.
So that area would be lawn, but we also increased the grasses and wildflower area by 200 square feet. So the area that is being taken out for driveway we're planning to be lawn.
Okay. What would prevent that from being used as parking?
Nothing. I think that was probably part of the point, is that it could be overflow parking.
Would you, so the additional mitigation, where is that?
Well, we didn't provide additional mitigation, but this, the restoration area that's to the south of the pool, the grasses and wildflowers restoration planting, when we made those changes, we increased that area by 200 square feet.
How was that conveyed?
It's revision clouded over on the right-hand side of the page in the, so it went from, the previously submitted plan was 3,800 square feet. And then we have a revision cloud showing that that notation changed. So now it's 4,000 square feet.
But you don't show an additional area.
No, it's just where the generator was. And then that whole entire area is now 4,000 square feet.
So by removing a generator, you
And
gained.
yeah, and just increasing the size of that area
You gained.
overall.
It does appear to me that they've moved the generator out of the aura, the 50 to 100, and they've moved it outside of the 100, which I think is a positive.
It is positive. It is. I'm just quibbling over the numbers, that's all, because you're saying you added how many square feet again?
200.
200 square feet, so that whole area got slightly bigger. We swallowed up the previously proposed generator, and then we expanded the outside, the southern edge of that, so it's now 200 square feet bigger. But that was not considered to be extra mitigation because we thought that because the driveway was already calculated for the mitigation, we were doing an even exchange of square footage within the amount that was already previously permitted.
All right, I'm going to leave it to others to figure out whether or not it's an even exchange. I'm not sure. Other comments or questions?
I think it's relatively balanced. It's pervious hardscape for pervious hardscape. I'm glad to see the generator move. I agree with Mary, and changing that area where the generator was. And there's another red box around the red box that designates where the generator was to have been. I'm assuming that larger red box is
Clearance.
all going to be, right, that's all going to be part of the mitigation now. That's a net benefit, I think.
Okay.
I'm okay with it.
Other opinions? Agreed? Okay. Guess I'm just being a suspicious Sam.
No,
Your nature.
I am very pleased that they moved the generator because I was very
I don't know.
uncomfortable with where it was before, so.
I mean, to me, you're keeping the parking that you were going to have already, and you're adding more patio. So
Well, it's going to be a
But
Cape Cod
it's gonna be
lawn,
Ca-
right?
It's going to be Cape Cod parking.
Right. Which, come on,
I
that's,
know, I mean, we have to
let's
be
face it,
realistic.
people park on,
We're not getting rid of the cars,
people
so
park on their lawns.
I would rather have them.
I would prefer to have that roped off.
Put a wall there.
No, and I think it's getting further protection towards the wetlands area, which is,
Yes.
to me, the bigger
Right,
concern.
that is better. And it's also next to
So-
the mitigation area, so
Okay.
better.
All right. How about you, Bob? Okay.
I'm fine with it.
All right. Guess we're okay with it
So
then.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the field change with 305 Main Street.
Gordon, second.
Roll call vote. Elise?
Aye.
Cheryl? Bob-
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
And I sort of vote aye. Yeah.
Oh, you can't sort of. You're either
I know, I
in or
know.
you're not.
Effectively, I'm voting aye. Thank you.
You can vote no.
I'm going to chalk it up to being not fully recovered. That's what I'm going to do.
All right, next we have a request for determination of applicability, 104 Aunt Nabby's Lane, Ed and Deborah Schwab, map 10B, parcel 3, R236, second story addition, replace decking and installation of underground utilities.
Hi, good afternoon. Stephanie Sequin with Broder and Wilcox. I'm representing Ed and Deborah Schwabe, who are the owners of the property at 104 Aunt Nabby's Lane. This property's been in Deb's family for several generations. There are several buildings on the property. The main house, which has 3 bedrooms, according to the assessor's records, was built in 1940 and is basically at the top of the coastal bank that abuts Oyster Pond River. Landward of the main house, there's a 2-bedroom guest house and also a detached garage. Currently, the Schwabes use this just in the summer as a part-time residence, but they are hoping to create additional space so that they can use it on more of a full-time basis. So what they are proposing, right now it's a 1-story, the main house is 1-story with unfinished attic above. They want to take off the roof and construct a 2nd floor over just the main part of the building. So they'll take the existing roof off, build new walls and a new roof and create additional floor area on the 2nd floor. There's no change in the footprint. There's no foundation work, no exterior foundation work. They will be doing some reinforcing on the inside, but no excavation required outside. Also, as part of the renovations, they will remove the existing decking and replace it with new decking. No change in the footprint, again, on the existing deck. If there are, and after they take the decking off, if any of the floor joists on the deck are rotted, those will be replaced also. And they also propose to bring in a natural gas service underground from the road to the main house, and that will be installed using a mole so that they don't have to do a trench from the road to the building. And lastly, they are proposing an air conditioning unit that's located adjacent to the main house. So that's what's being proposed. I included construction notes on the site plan as well as a construction protocol in the narrative. We're showing a limit of work and fabric silt fence to be installed adjacent to the existing deck to confine the work area. It's called for a dumpster to be placed in the driveway, which will be used for demolition and construction debris. And then any areas that are disturbed during the work will be restored upon completion of construction. The existing 3-bedroom home is going to remain 3 bedrooms. We've reviewed these plans with the health agent, and she is not requiring any alterations to the septic system. This does require Board of Appeals approval, and a hearing is scheduled for April 27th with the ZBA. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from anyone? Not a single question.
Wow, we're
No change in the
catching
footprint.
up.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to think of a reason why we could not improve this as an RDA. It's no increase in coverage. Same footprint. Gone. What, oh, go ahead.
I got one thing,
All right.
small, but, so you're gonna add the AC unit, Stephanie. Any thinking about adding a native to the landscape because of that?
If you would, I know the Schwabes are open to that. If you'd like to see something, they, I'm sure, would be amenable to that.
I'd be in favor of that. Can't hurt.
So what is it that you looked?
Just any shrub, you could review it with the agent
Okay,
and add it to the plantings.
okay.
That'd be wonderful. But other than that, I don't have anything.
Okay, Bob. Good idea. What type of RDA, what type of
This is a -3.
-3? And we could add a little condition there for the shrub?
Yep, I can, basically say see narrative for conditions and one native plant shall be installed to offset the AC square footage.
All right, very good.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we approve a -3 determination of applicability for 104 Aunt Nabby's Lane.
Gordon, second.
Roll call vote. Elise?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Thanks a
Okay,
lot.
great, thank you very much.
All right, the next items up are the amended orders of conditions. Stephanie, before you leave, is May 3rd okay for 41 Locust?
Yes, that's fine, thank you.
Okay, all right, so I'll open it and we'll vote. 41 Locust Lane, Jonathan and Alicia Downs, map 15F, parcel 53, SE 103478, phase 2, construction of an additional 32 feet of catwalk, and they have requested a continuance to May 3rd.
Excellent.
Make a motion that we continue 41 Locust Lane to May 3rd, 2023.
Gordon, second.
Roll call vote. Elise?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Question?
I had written in my notes that we were getting ready, we were sending it to the work session for an order. I don't know that there are,
I think, is there still a zoning thing?
Yeah, they haven't filed with zoning yet, and you
Okay.
wanted that done before you
Yep.
wanted to
that's what
draft
it
an
is.
order.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, Mary?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Okay, thank you.
Just on that note, zoning's May 4th. So do we want to redo this and do the next hearing?
Good thinking.
Yeah.
Which is May 12th, I think. No, that's next
Wait,
meeting.
May 4th is a Thursday.
No, yeah, so it would have been May 3rd. So we have to,
May 10th. is
yeah,
when-
we voted May 3rd. That's what I wrote down anyway. So yeah, May 10th if we want to do that instead.
That's fine with me.
Okay, so we got to do it again?
I got a question, Stephanie. It doesn't seem like we have aluminum decking on here. I didn't see anything on the new plans for the extensions.
It says it in the.
I did submit after the hearing, where we negotiated to keep the current decking, but specify aluminum on the future decking. I'm pretty sure I submitted a revised plan after that. Maybe it didn't get
There
distributed.
is a revised plan, and the note, the revision note, March 8th, says aluminum decking.
Right.
But it's not actually called out on the plan itself, if that's what it's going to be. So
Okay.
maybe that would clarify it when you get to,
Okay, I will try and take a look at that and make it more clear.
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Just because we don't want the same thing to happen.
know.
This time that happened last time. All right. And also in the draft order, I think I specifically said what we agreed to.
Okay.
So revised motion, May
Yeah.
10th.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
Revision on 41 Locust Lane. Make a motion that we continue 41 Locust Lane to May 10th, 2023.
Gordon, second.
Roll call. Elise?
Aye.
Cheryl?
aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Okay,
Got
thank
that-
you.
Got that straight?
Now we're done.
All right, next we have an amended order of conditions for 65 Sears Road, Sears Point Summer LLC, map 11A, parcel 2, J14, SE 103518, phase 2. Addition reduced in size, porch will be exchanged for trellis, front entry will include a porch, changes to the walkway and steps, side walkway is being removed, shifting rent station to be outside of the NDZ, and trash enclosure is being relocated.
Hello, anybody?
That's on the platform.
Is he?
I think it's.
I think Thad was,
Yeah, Thad, we can't hear you if you're speaking.
Sorry, I forgot on that one. He wanted 65 stairs to be moved to the end.
Oh, that's
after-
right, now I remember that, yeah.
Because he has two of them.
Okay.
I think it was gonna go between 676 Orleans and 82 Jericho.
Okay.
All right, so we'll come back to that one, because he wanted to do them together, and since he was at the end, figured he would just do it at the end.
Yep.
All right, so then we are on to the notice of intents. 608 Stage Harbor Road, Old Mill Boatyard, map 13A, parcel 2411, SE 103624. Construction of a pump station for the comprehensive wastewater management plan.
Good afternoon, Robert Duncan, Director of Health and Natural Resources for the town. This is a continuation of the comprehensive wastewater management plan that's been underway since 2009. As this board, you've heard many times before, we continue to expand the wastewater collection system. This expansion, which is called Phase 1E2, will extend the sewer down Stage Harbor Road that we went as far as 397 a number of years ago. We're now extending down to the lower portion of Stage Harbor Road from roughly 397 down to the Old Mill Boatyard, which is the Harbor Master's Workshop facility, as well as a number of the side streets in that area, Cedar Swamp Lane, Huckleberry Lane, and others. You may recall that a number of years ago, we put sewer in on Bridge Street when work was being done there as part of a water main replacement. While the road was dug up for that, we went ahead and put the sewer line in on Bridge Street so that we didn't have to come back at some point in the future and dig it all up again. So in order to serve those areas, because of the topography, the low point is right at 608 Stage Harbor Road, which is the Harbor Master Workshop. So we've been working to design a pump station that's there. The difficulty that we ran into, or the thing that made it more complicated, is we are in the floodplain. And so unfortunately, that means we now have to have basically a two-story building to house the pump station, as opposed to the one that this board recently reviewed at the intersection of Oyster Pond Furlong and Queen Anne, where we basically have no building, and everything is relatively small and in a very tight situation. In this case, because of the fact that we're in the floodplain and we have to move certain equipment, generators and things like that out of the flood zone, it requires a building. So we've sited the building to the rear of the existing Harbor Master building. All right, I don't know where our pointers disappeared to, but anyway. So down in the lower portion of the corner where it says 608 slab elevation, that's the existing Harbor Master Workshop. And then on the back side of this property, there are several storage buildings that are used by the Harbor Master to store buoys and whatnot during the fall, winter, and early spring seasons. And then the entire site is already utilized for outdoor storage, boats, and other equipment by the Harbor Master during, the winter non-boating months, if you will. So we looked at a number of different locations around this site to try to site the pump station. Our original choice was directly behind the existing Harbor Master Workshop. However, we do have to maintain by code a certain distance between the two buildings. So that's why the pump station was moved a little further back in the parcel. We were trying to keep it as not in the way of all the existing activities that currently take place there, because as I'm sure you've been down there or have driven by it many times, it is a very tight site to begin with. The entire right-hand side is wetland. It comes right up to this area. And so we tried to stay as far away from the wetland as we could. We actually looked at the parking area over on the left side of the Harbor Master Workshop that's currently parking for Harbor Master as well as members of the public. But unfortunately, the taking up the space and the parking, as well as the proximity to the abutter, where the trees are currently, it's fairly heavily wooded right there at the bend in the property line. And so we ended up siting the pump station there to take advantage of that, and also the fact that as you go into that parking area, the elevation goes up, the natural ground elevation. That would therefore make the building that much higher, when you drive by and you can see it. So, it's not the ideal situation, it's not the ideal location, but, it's one of those ones where it's the best location we have in that area. We did have some discussions, we had 2 meetings with the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee, because obviously the other alternative would have been to do entirely low-pressure sewer in this area, which would have obviated the need for the pump station. However, one of the critical policies of the town since we began the comprehensive wastewater management plan was to put as many properties on gravity sewer as possible. And so we had 2 different meetings with the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee to get their input. We presented an alternative plan, if you will, to them to do low-pressure sewer. They voted both times they voted to support gravity sewer with a pump station. And so that's what we've got designed here. All the utilities, if you will be underground, as they currently are. We'd be upgrading some of the utilities that go into the Harbor Master Workshop building, and then all the rest of the utilities would either come from that building or come directly from Eversource poles or whatnot, they already exist along the street. The bottom part of the building is basically a bunker with a watertight door to it, because that is in the floodplain. Then there will be a stairway on the left-hand side that will go up to the second floor access, where the emergency generator and some of the pump controls and things like that will be housed, to get them out of the floodplain. And then the cross-hatched area that you see in front, or on the right-hand side, if you will, that is porous pavers. We're going to use the same porous paving blocks that we used over at the Trap Dock building when we did that. Right now, that area is just basically dirt, and, it's driven on and equipment is stored on it, but, by the harbor master. So just trying to make that a little bit better, we went ahead with the paving blocks in that area, the articulated mat, same as we used across the street, just to provide a little bit better driving surface and not, get into mud season in the spring and whatnot, which we felt, would be more impactful potentially to the, the wetland. We're not going to increase the amount of impervious surface except for the roof outline of the building. There's really no place to deal with runoff other than where it goes naturally with all the sheds and all that are there. It just kind of drops off, percolates in. That area does flood on occasion in, storm events. That's not going to change with the fact that we had the building there. To some extent, it's coastal flooding, so it's not like inland flooding around a pond where if you increase, the surface area, you could cause worse flooding in somebody else's property, because this is ocean flooding. It has really no impact on the flooding potential in surrounding areas. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
And do we have any? Bob, go ahead.
I'll start. You mentioned that it would be a watertight door. Wouldn't you design the lower portion to accept water in and out?
No, that's where the pumps and all are going to be, so it has to be basically a watertight bunker.
Okay, so it has to be waterproof, the
Yep.
whole structure.
Yep.
Was there any thought to, so this is going to be pretty tall. What's the height in the end?
The height in the end is 30 feet, which is the limit under zoning. We do have to go to zoning because of the setbacks to the property line, because we are right on the property line. But we do not need to go to zoning because of the height. We're keeping it at 30 feet or less. So we don't have to deal with that.
And was there any thought given to screening it because of the neighbors' concerns, maybe?
As I indicated as you're looking at the plan on the left-hand side along that property line, there's already pretty heavy screening there from there to the abutting house.
Right.
Other than that, there really is no place to put screening. If we put screening in, then we lose storage space and workspace for the harbor master, which we didn't want to do for obvious reasons. So we are gonna have to relocate, 2 of the small sheds that are currently there that the harbor master uses. We're gonna relocate one of those down to the upper portion there where you can see the crosshatch square. And the other shed is probably gonna go right directly behind the harbor master's workshop, in that area, but we do have to relocate those 2 sheds that currently exist.
Okay, thank you.
Bob, I have a question about that. It's hard because there's so many different little wetland lines. Are they getting further or closer to the resource is?
The one shed at the upper part of the picture will probably get, quote, closer to the wetland. However, there always used to be a shed there in the past, which was taken down a number of years ago. So we're basically taking one of the sheds that exists and putting that back where the other shed was. And then the other shed, is actually gonna be on the other side. And those are areas that are currently used for storage, boats and buoys and all now. So there really isn't gonna be any increase, if you will, or no work or no equipment stored in closer proximity to the wetland than stuff that's already stored there.
Just following up on Nikki's question, I was struggling with the site plan to understand where the resource areas are, because I saw in the delineation notes, there's floodplain, although that one is listed, but there's also salt marsh and coastal bank, and I can't find either of them denoted on the plan.
Okay, well, basically, if you're familiar with it, the entire area to the right is wetland.
Right.
Absolutely. We can have the plan revised. We have the engineer here from GHD. We can have the plan revised to show those wetland boundaries a little bit more clearly.
Yeah, I see a line on the southern half of the plan says 50-foot wetland buffer, and then that line seems to disappear as it intersects the proposed building, and I don't see it reemerging anywhere, so
Yeah.
I don't.
This is Jeff Gregg from the
Hi, Jeff.
engineers.
Hi. Part of the difficulty is because you have the wetland that's clearly delineated on the one side, but then because you have the harbor and all the setbacks from the other side across the street, all the lines kind of intersect, and it gets it does get kind of jumbled because each one is relative to its own area, so they start crossing over. So it's kind of like everything is pretty much in,
Yeah.
I mean, it's all basically within 50 feet. The problem is, like I said,
Everything is in the-
Pretty much is within 50 feet,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
all in the floodplain, which is the other question I have. I understand because it's floodplain that you want to provide a safe surface to get equipment in and out of there. But I wonder about the articulated mat is only semi-pervious because it has the concrete centers and the grass joints. Would something like stone or shell, which is much more pervious and able to deal with any floodwaters that are coming through there, work better? Or work as well without the?
It would work, the articulated mat would work a little bit better, just because it's a more hardened surface when you drive on it. Even gravel over time, you start to get ruts and all if it's mud season, if you will. We use the articulated mat, like I say, across the street at the trap dock. It seems to have worked pretty well. That area floods on occasion, just like this does. But we could, if the commission would prefer that we not go with the articulated mat, quite honestly, I would probably then just leave it the way it is. Maybe put a little bit of gravel down. But the idea was, there's a lot of traffic with boats and material going in and out of there, and docks being stored there for the winter and things like that. We were just trying to give it a little bit better surface,
The stable
than
surface.
what we currently have, if you will.
And I get all that. My concern just comes from, it's not only in the floodplain, but it's an area that's known to flood. And you're putting a watertight building in there, which will have the effect of diverting whatever flood water comes through there. And if you're adding concrete blocks that are I just think you're reducing the ability of the area to absorb any floodwaters that might be moving through there. I don't know if anybody else.
I don't know, I guess I don't have an opinion on it.
I don't know.
I get the argument about you want a tough surface
Yep.
for all the trucks.
Yeah,
Those do absorb. I mean.
right, it's grass joints, so it
Yeah,
does.
quite
it
honestly,
will-
when that place floods, it's,
Yeah.
or the least of the problems are going to be just absorbing the,
Groundwater is, just in context, groundwater is only a couple feet below the grade, so
Yeah.
it's, there isn't a whole lot of, that
Right.
was part of the issue. It's either kind of, we looked at this to give them sort of more stability for their actual other operations.
It's a
versus
tough I mean, I
yeah,
understand
no.
the concerns. So is that where the 4,100 square feet of coverage in the NDZ is coming from the articulated mat? Or where is that derived from?
I'd have to go back and look at
The chart's on the side there. It's cut off a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of the building and the articulated mat area.
Okay, it's just a
'Cause
big
those-
number to
Those are
see
the
in
only
NDZ.
things that are being added, yeah.
Okay.
okay? Want to think about it? Yeah.
And so you're not offering any mitigation in the form of plants because of the, enhancement in the water quality, correct?
Yeah, there's really no place to do anything, and then, as you correctly said, by sewering this area, the long-term goal is better water quality for the entire system, yeah.
So I know there's no room here on the site, but have you considered planting natives in a different part of town?
We did not, no.
Would that be a consideration?
Yeah, could be.
I'll follow up on that one, Bob. Go ahead, if you're done.
I'm done.
Yeah. The coverage chart, we do things sort of by the Wetlands Protection Act, the way that we're prescribed to do things. And so you have a coverage chart that says 4,500 square feet or something like that. It's really unclear to me whether that meant increase, whether that's when it's all said and done. I couldn't tell what the increase is and so forth, so it's just all very unclear to me. Because we do, unless there's a provision that you're aware of where we don't need to worry about it for a sewering project, well, we do need to check the box in terms of, well, you're increasing the coverage and therefore we need to have mitigation somewhere. And that's where I got hung up on this particular one. Because I didn't know that until you spoke, that you're not removing the existing sheds, you're keeping them, you're just putting them on the property. So I thought, well, part of the logic here is that you're taking them away. And so there's where you're getting your increase, but that's not it, so. The numbers don't, if I were to write the order for this, I wouldn't know how to do it.
Yeah, so as I recall, because I didn't draft all of this, so, the building is in the first row, so that is the area of structures goes from the basically 1,100 to the 1,500, so it's a net increase of about 400. And then in the areas of what we called areas of landscape pools, walkways, driveways, that is the articulated mat was the other in the walkway is the other, that 4,100 square feet. And what I think, I'd have to go back and look, the intent was actually to carry that further up the driveway, which I don't think was reflected on this plan, but I think is reflected in this number. I'd have to go back and look, because they wanted to basically carry it. There's a paved apron that comes off the road, and then there's a driveway that's paved in front of the garage. We were gonna leave that paved, and then from the apron, where it's basically a dirt driveway, do the articulated mat all the way out towards the back, because they literally drive boats and trailers and everything under the sun that parks out there, so in the spring or after a high tide flood, it's definitely mucky back there.
All right, so hearing all that, I think I'm personally a little stuck just in dotting the i's and crossing the t's in terms of the coverage. Is there an increase? or not. And I understand that your logic is, well, we're sewering, so therefore, you know, we don't need mitigation, but I don't know if the Wetlands Protection Act allows us to say that.
Can I just ask, is there any room, like on Oyster Pond for a long project, for you to add mitigation there? You know, to at least cover the 400 square feet of this new building?
We could certainly look at that. You know, the Oyster Pond for a long site, as you know, is pretty tight. And we're already doing a lot of plantings there, but we'll take a look at it and see if there's room to increase the plantings. Beyond that, you know, we do have an easement there, so we have a certain outer limit that we have to work within.
Or I just threw
Yeah.
out that site because it was a similar
Yeah,
project, but I don't know if there's another site that.
Yeah, you know, and the other thing to keep in, well, not to keep in mind, but one thing that we were discussing with the harbor master was there's going to be a project, probably in a few years, to look at the harbor master's workshop and potentially do something there. We actually looked at it early on as part of this project to try to do the two of them together, but the timing just didn't work out. You know, in terms of, because right now the harbor master's workshop floods because of where its elevation is. It's actually about 2 feet lower than Stage Harbor Road. So when you drive to the harbor master's workshop, you actually drive down. And so it's prone to flooding. They actually raised the building a couple of years ago, but it still floods. But we will certainly look, if the commission wants us to look at, you know, roughly 400 square feet of mitigation, we will certainly look at that. As you know, we have multiple projects going on right now at the sewer project. We have projects going on at the fish pier with stormwater improvements. So we can certainly look at mitigation at somewhere in town.
Okay.
Where we have a project underway.
Yeah, I think from our perspective, we're obligated to ask for that, so.
Yeah.
And since I see the numbers have turned quite red here, so we need to, are there any other things that we would like for them to think about other than that, and then other than perhaps Janet's question about the surface?
I don't think I'm not asking a question that I'm expecting an answer from,
Okay.
or two. I understand the concerns and the balancing that has to be done. I'll just have to think about that.
Okay. So we know we need to continue. When should that be? From your perspective?
Excuse me?
When would you like to continue to?
I think as soon as possible, because we're under a fairly tight, we're trying to get this project out to bid before the end of June.
Okay.
So,
Nikki, what do you see?
So April 12th did not get much submitted to us. There's some dredging things, so I haven't looked at them yet, so I don't know if they're going to take long, but basically everything on next week's agenda is going to be continuances.
Oh, April 12th is good.
Okay.
are you
If
available?
that works for you.
Okay.
No.
All right.
Is that-
I will not be here on the 12th, but Jeff, the engineer, can be here.
Okay. And just whenever, Jeff, whenever you give us next, the coverage table is supposed to reflect the increase
It does.
It does.
overall. Does it currently?
Yeah.
It's not the way it read to me. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I thought
It does.
it did.
Yeah,
Because we
it
did,
does.
If it
we
did,
moved
it
the
did.
sheds, and then it had we added the building, which had the roof area, so that was the
Yeah.
plus
All right,
400.
that's
and
good.
then,
I'm not 100%, so I'm.
Nope, that's okay.
So why are we continuing?
Yeah, why are we continuing?
Why? Oh, so they can,
Oh, to talk about mitigation.
the mitigation and
They can find 400 square feet.
I mean, you know, we would prefer that you close the hearing, and we will address the mitigation question separately, but if you feel,
Okay,
I mean,
but-
that certainly could be a condition that,
That's
you
true.
know, as part of the project.
you're right, that's the only thing, you're right.
Yeah.
That's true, yeah.
If that's the only thing holding us up.
Yeah,
It doesn't really,
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter because it still has to go to the same work session on April 26th. I guess the question is, do we need a hearing between now and then?
right, apparently not. Yeah, so we just
Okay.
go to the work session on April
26th.
26th.
Okay,
All right,
thank you.
good.
Thank you.
Make a motion that we continue 608 Stage Harbor Road to the work session for an order of conditions on April 26th, 2023.
Gordon second.
Roll call vote, Elise.
Aye.
Cheryl.
Aye.
Bob.
Aye.
Janet.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
And I vote aye. Okay, we have to make up some time here.
The next order or notice of intent is 1233 Main Street, Town of Chatham, Oyster Pond Pumping Station, map 11E, parcel 31S, X0FF SE 103623, construction of a pump station for the comprehensive wastewater management plan.
Okay, hopefully this one will be quicker. It has lot less issues than the previous one. Again, we're just continuing the comprehensive wastewater management plan. We originally were gonna, the area of Kelly Lane and that neighborhood, we had originally planned that to be low-pressure sewer because the town didn't have access to any property in that area to do a pump station. Subsequent to that, I had conversations with the folks at the Oyster Pond condos, as I call it. They indicated that they were willing to talk about potentially siting a pump station on the condominium property, which we have subsequently worked with them and have come up with a location. And that's what's before you tonight. I don't know if Nikki shows the site plan, but if you're familiar with that property, and actually the cover photo that was on the notice of intent application shows it pretty clearly. They have a boat storage area, for want of a better term, on the back side of the property, so the Oyster Pond side. And so we were able to work with them and use that as a location for a pump station. This one is outside of the floodplain, and so we don't have to worry about having a building or anything like that. This is going to be a pump station very similar to the one that you recently approved at the intersection of Oyster Pond Furlong and Queen Anne Road. Everything is going to be pretty much above ground except for the wet well. We're actually going to run a sewer main from that pump station over to Kelly Lane. So basically cross-country, through the thickets and kind of the brush that's there. And we've gotten an easement from the last property owner on Kelly Lane, because believe it or not, Kelly Lane does not go all the way up to the property line with the condos. So we've been in contact with that gentleman there, and he's granted us an easement to basically install the sewer line under his front yard, if you will. And then we'll come cross-country over to this pump station, because that's basically the low point in the area. And it will now allow us to connect the Kelly Lane neighborhood and that whole area. You know, most properties by gravity, some properties, because of their unique nature, will still have to have grinder pumps, but the majority will now be able to put on sewer. We'll also be putting the condominium property on sewer. They were supposed to sewer out to Route 28. And when we did Route 28, we actually left a lateral or a stub to the property line for them to connect. However, their existing septic systems are all on the back side of the buildings, so they would have had to deal with that, and there's a low point between the condominium property and Route 28. When you drive in there, you kind of drive down and then back up the hill. All that would have made it a very complicated connection for them. So taking all that into account, we were able to work with them, and they are granting us an easement to put the pump station here. As you can see on the plan, we're just barely, there's a small portion of the site that will still be within the 100-foot buffer. Most of it is outside the 100-foot buffer. We were able, very similar to other projects, we try to keep everything outside the buffer whenever we can. But we do have that little area there. So basically, the black dots that you see, those are manholes. You got the sewer line in between. It will then flow into the concrete wet well, which is the same thing that we just installed up at Oyster Pond Furlong. We will have the fiberglass above ground doghouse, as I call it, that roughly 6 by 6 by 7 or 8 feet tall, that will house the pump units. There will be an emergency generator, and there will be some, electrical and instrumentation boxes pretty much on the back side. The area will be surrounded by a privacy fence, so a white composite material fence. We don't show any landscaping here because in our conversations with the condo association, it was kind of like, let's get it up and then see what landscaping might be appropriate. They obviously don't want to lose any more space than they have to because they do store boats and whatnot, in that area for the winter. It is down in a little hollow, so when you're up in the condos, you really can't see it. So we're keeping everything as low as we can. And so with that, we're happy to answer any questions.
All right, and do we? Same sort of, yeah, it's a little bit different project than the other, but there is incursion in the 100, as you noted. So the landscaping that you might put in there, where would that be relative to this structure?
We hadn't decided yet. It would more likely be around, somewhere outside the fence. Like I say, that's why we didn't show anything right off the bat. Because the condo folks were kind of like, well, let's see what it looks like once it's up. And then we'll determine, A, if they need any landscaping and where would be the most appropriate place to put it that wouldn't, negatively impact their use of the site for the things that they currently use it for.
Most of the landscaping that we were considering is actually further up on the site and would either line the top of the ridge so that it wouldn't disrupt their view, but might just cover there's like almost a 20-foot drop between kind of their flat area and then when you get down to that boat area. So just to kind of fill in that during the off-season. And then they're gonna have a transformer that's well up on the hill, and so there may be some landscaping there, but that was it. There's, as Bob said, it's really tight. The only thing I could imagine is, we might fill in by that tree and possibly the other side if they desired.
Well, it was a leading question, obviously, because obviously if you were to add that, if it were native, then we could have a win-win here.
Any plantings we do for any of these projects will be native. And I've stated that to the commission before, and
All right,
that's been our, anything we do will be native. You won't
Right.
see any Leland cypress or anything like that on any of our projects.
And just so you know, some of us here are purists. When we say native, we don't mean cultivars.
Yeah.
We
know
mean
that.
straight natives.
Yep.
Yeah. It doesn't have any quotation marks around any
Right.
of the names.
Yeah, we
associated.
like things like, blueberry and,
Right, not blue mystic
Yeah.
native plant. whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do we do about the fact that you are technically increasing coverage within the outer aura?
again, I have no issue with a condition that says, we need to do some mitigation somewhere.
Okay, just add it to the other bunch that you're going to do?
Yeah, that's
Or-
fine.
I mean, you could consider whatever you plant here to be that. That's
Yeah.
why, if you could link those two together, I'd be
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
All right. Anybody else?
That's a beautiful cedar tree right there.
Yes, it is.
Will it be protected?
Yes.
Yes.
The condo association asked us to try to preserve that, so that's what one of the notes on the plan is, to protect that tree and its root system.
So
Yeah,
like a
during
snow fence
construction.
around it or something like
Yeah.
that?
Yep,
Okay.
yeah, no, that was an issue from day one.
And if you do plant up on the bank, at the top of the bank, to kind of screen the top of the doghouse, as you call it, there are a lot of invasives on the bank there. How will you prevent those invasives from spreading into the new plantings?
Right now, we hadn't, well, I shouldn't say we haven't. We're not planning to do any invasive species removal. That whole entire site, if you've been down there, is invasives. But, the way the condo association manages that is they mow a certain area and they just keep that line kind of there year after year.
So maybe put a mow strip in between?
Yeah, if we do anything up top, it'll be low growing because we don't want to, as Jeff said, we don't want to impede their view that they currently have. And right now, one of the things we did early on when they had some of the boats down there that are shrink wrapped this time of the year, how high are those boats currently? And we were trying not to make any of our facilities any higher than that. And obviously, we don't want to do anything up on the bank even higher to make their view any worse. So, but yeah, we could, if we do decide to do something there with the association, we'll work with them to figure out the best way to do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all, thank you.
Anyone else? and guess we're fairly good to go on this. What do we do? Do we ask for anything specifically? It's really conceivably some mitigation coming out that will show up in the other project.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to go with the same work session, which is
26th.
26.
Make a motion that we continue 1233 Main Street, Town of Chatham, to the work session on April 26, 2023, for an order of conditions.
Gordon second.
Roll call vote, Elise.
Aye.
Cheryl.
Aye.
Bob.
Aye.
Janet.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
The next order of conditions we have is 35 and 43 Sears Road, Mahalo Realty Trust, map 12A, parcels 1312 and 14 I1, SE, I'm sure we have an SE number, I'll check, but proposed coastal bank stabilization.
Good afternoon. For the record, Seth Wilkinson. There weren't any plan changes for the project since the last hearing, so we did pass along some email correspondence with some additional information. I believe the three primary issues that the commission was looking for further information on was the little low deck viewing platform down by the water, which the owners actually shared information from when they purchased the property, which showed that the deck was there over a decade ago when they moved in. I'm not sure if Nikki found additional information beyond that. We verified there was no irrigation in the lawn, which is also similar to when they moved in, and it's mowed infrequently through the summer, once or twice a month. So it really is a true Cape Cod lawn. And the pipe, which Dr. Duncanson just left, but there was some correspondence from Dr. Duncanson as well as from Ted Keon about the pipe, and it was likely installed with the Cape Cod mosquito control, which has broad exemptions under the Wetlands Protection Act, and general consensus between Wilkinson Ecological, Ted, and Bob is to recommend not altering the hydrology of the wetland at this time. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any
Thank you,
questions
Jeff.
the commission might have.
Questions?
I have a quick question. Same question I asked last time, actually. I'm just curious why we are not allowing this coastline to do what it's designed to do, which is to absorb floodwater into that marsh. Instead, we're gonna harden that edge off, where I guess my impression was that that's what these marshes were for, is when there's high water or when there is seawater, sea level rise. These kind of areas are custom-made to absorb that rise. And so I'm just kind of curious what the rationale for is shutting that off when other parts of the area were opening those up.
Oh, well, we're not changing the topography of the existing coastal bank. We're just helping to stabilize it. The Wetlands Protection Act is sometimes a little hard to meet that criteria because it basically says coastal banks, which are sediment sources, which this clearly is, need to continue to provide sediment, but should also be stable with vegetation. So our interpretation, and I think the broad interpretation of that has always been that they should be as vegetated as possible, but still be allowed to erode in response to major storm events. So this is helping to, this is sort of acknowledging that there is a lot of activity on this beach with dinghies and public use, and trying to give the plants a fighting chance at reestablishing in this area. But if floodwaters still want to come over, we're not stopping that. That function will still be able to occur. And if they start making their way into the freshwater wetlands, sort of depending on what time of the year that happens, there could be pretty significant changes to that habitat if that starts happening more regularly, and particularly during the growing season. But again, I don't see this as changing that. It's really trying to manage the rate of erosion, which has been speeding up recently with the additional use of this area.
So as sea level rises, is the expectation that at some point that embankment will need to be higher in order to protect that other side, or does it eventually just wash out and we fill that marsh with? I mean, I know you can't tell me the future, but I'm just curious what you would guess is going to happen in that area. And in 5 to 10 years, is that marsh going to be different?
I would say, based on most of the models and the latest NOAA data that we have for sea level rise predictions, there would not be any changes to this area based on projected sea level rise, which is generally done on the ocean side, and this is an estuarine environment, so that should be lessened. But there've never been any discussions about increasing the height of the coastal bank. That would clearly be a separate activity that would have to come before this board. So again, it's hard to look in the future, but there's no plans to do that presently.
Thank you.
Seth, I still have a concern about the root system of the bayberry. You're going to be covering that up? You're going to be shoring that up so the plants have a chance?
Yes.
The existing plants?
Yes, the idea. Sorry, I'm in a little spiderweb of cables under here. Try not to pull the podium over or unplug myself. Yes, the goal would be when the fibrils will sort of meet the top of the scarp, and then sediment would be placed over the surface of that to then cover any exposed root systems.
Okay.
And certainly condition to that effect would not be a problem at all.
Okay, and the drainage pipe, I know it's kind of a safety hazard. Was there any thinking, I know we talked about it before, but any further thought in kind of covering that over in a way, so it's not so, jagged or sharp?
Yes, I mean, we could certainly, as we're leaving, sort of trim it so there's no immediate safety hazards. My understanding, we've chatted with Steve, who's in the audience, project manager Steve LeBranch, who's spent a lot of time on this property and in this beach, and that is seasonally covered, so it'll probably be after the spring rains pass. They'll probably be covered up for most of the summer. We can't guarantee that, but I think certainly making sure there's no sharp edges on the edge of that plastic pipe would be a good idea.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to, you had said earlier that the owners of the property, understand that all the people that have boats in that mooring field regularly cross that. I'm assuming then they would not have an issue with a sign that, since they're doing all this work, that allows people to cross over in order to access their moorings, and as opposed to the, walkers not welcome sign.
Is there a walkers not welcome?
There was one.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
been taken down.
I'm not aware of it. I mean, it's still private land. They are allowing the folks with permits, I believe, from the town to tie their dinghies up there. That's voluntary. They're not
Required to do that.
right. It's a voluntary activity, and so certainly, folks under the Constitution of Massachusetts, you're allowed to fish foul and navigate below mean high water. So there's no changes proposed to that.
No, it's just it's some areas, more on the Pleasant Bay side, there are signs that people have, walkers welcome and.
Yeah, I haven't discussed that with them, unfortunately, so I couldn't say.
Well, I think as long as the town-owned dinghy rack remains there, there's an implicit permission given for people to cross across the
Well,
front.
that's why it would
Yeah.
just be, I think it'd be helpful to have, just one of the friendly signs, well, you walk the beaches like I do.
Yeah,
And there's plenty of homeowners that have, walkers welcome signs.
don't sit down.
Yeah.
That's what they say.
Which, no, and that's, we're just giving people, right, because that's a very busy
Yes, it's
mooring
incredibly
field. And
busy.
there's obviously a lot of people that need to access their boats, that should feel welcome to access their boats, because that is their legal right.
Yep.
So,
Anything
yeah.
else on that?
but you think this definitely needs to be done, because I haven't actually seen.
We've
The
been
need
seeing an
for the-
increase in erosion each year.
Yeah.
Well,
Particularly.
I just agree with Cheryl that, landscapes change. There's no house in danger, there's no need to protect property. I don't really see the need for the project, but.
Yeah, I
Let
mean,
me-
another
I
option.
have an observation about that, because I've been watching this site. So they did try another solution before where they planted a lot of that bank. And that held for a really long time until one of the storms last year took almost all of it away. And it's actually an interesting education, because on what's taken away, you can see the grasses that were planted are indeed like 20-inch long roots. So they were doing their job. And I think what's different about this is that the area that's being protected behind it was restored. Back in 2011, it had been completely overgrown with Phragmites, and a big restoration plan was executed. These guys performed it. And it's now a really well-functioning, but it's a freshwater system, which is what that pipe is. That's why my dog always drinks the water coming out of the pipe, because it's fresh water. But if too much salt water ends up in there, it will change it to a different environment, which may not be as beneficial ecologically speaking as what's functioning there now. So it's always a
It is-
balancing.
It is what we allowed to happen at Muddy Creek, though.
At Muddy
You know,
Creek,
it's
yes.
at Muddy Creek where it used to be a different
Yes, that's true.
wetland, and now it
That's
looks
true.
terrible, but it is changing over from, as
Yep.
everything has died off and something new is gonna occur.
Yes, right,
So it's
right.
funny that we opened that one up.
Well, that was removing a culvert under,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
this is just, I don't know.
Changed- So
moving
it's
the
just,
bank.
that's what I look at, I'm like, is it eventually gonna be Muddy Creek? Or are
Right.
we just delaying the inevitable?
No, because it's different, it's not, there's
You're
no,
saying it's
there's no
different, yeah.
huge tidal
Right.
wash coming
it's an
through as
estuary.
there is
Yeah.
at Muddy Creek.
No, that was a good explanation you gave, I think that was useful to me.
Thanks.
Yeah, anybody? I think it's a valid question for us to continually ask about these projects, is it really needed?
Yeah.
I know you have objected to me in the past asking, why are you doing it?
Right.
Well, it's primarily because that is a specific question you're supposed to ask with a coastal engineering structure. And there's frequently confusion, not just in Chatham, but in a lot of places where we work. Years ago, town of Falmouth said we couldn't do it. And they had mistakenly applied a CES, and a judge promptly overturned that because CES rules don't apply to fiber rolls. So it's a common source of confusion. And again, I would say the reason they're doing this, as I said last time, was to stabilize. They did enjoy a well-vegetated coastal bank, and they're trying to continue. We do believe that the increased public access, which they've granted and happy to grant, has contributed to the acceleration of the erosion here. So they're trying to balance. They're trying to continue to let the public use this area and still maintain a stable coastal bank, which also protects, in this particular instance, a very high-functioning freshwater wetland behind it. At some point, when there's tidal pressure, that's if the sea level rise is sufficient, so that there would be a tidal exchange between the freshwater wetland and the estuary system, then that's a very different situation. That's likely decades ahead of us, given the grade changes there. but that would, that, I don't think you can really compare that to where we are today. It may happen, I hope it doesn't, I hope we don't have that much sea level rise, but it could, and I think at that time, that would be the time to have that conversation. But right now, you would just have a loss of wetlands, because right now, it's a perched wetland. So if that landform went away, then water would run out of the wetland, and it would become drier. The coverage of the wetland would decrease, and then at some point, sea level rise continues to increase, you might have sufficient tidal regime to push tidewaters up in there, but not presently. Right now, it would just drain the wetland.
Right. So I do think, Cheryl, we should be asking that question for every one of these and be sure that we are satisfied that there's a legitimate need for these fiber arrays, because as we've seen, some of them look pretty bad for a period of time. I know you have to break an omelet to make some eggs. Nevertheless, I think some of us have observed or have questions about, in all cases, are they needed? So it's good to ask the question. In this particular case, I could go either way, but I certainly don't think it's something that offers no benefits. So,
Oops,
we're red.
we're in red.
All right, so appreciate all the stuff you sent about the pipe, about the draining, the pipes. You answered more or less the questions that I had before. So without further ado, if there's anything else, unless there's anything else, we're, I think, ready to go to 26th, is that what it is?
Mm-hmm.
Make a motion that we continue 35 and 43 Sears Road to the work session on April 26th, 2023 for an order of conditions.
Gordon, second.
We'll call vote Elise.
Aye.
Cheryl.
Aye.
Bob.
Aye.
Janet.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
And I vote aye. All right, thank you. Moving onward. Where are we? We have time for another.
We are exactly halfway through, so I figure this might be a good time to take a quick break.
Sure. Yeah. Are we halfway through?
Yeah,
So we're
2:30,
10
so
minutes
we have-
behind.
Huh?
We're 10 minutes
10
behind.
minutes behind. Okay, all right, so that's fine. Let's go ahead and do it for 6 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, we're online. Okay, we're back. Okay, Nikki, are you here?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, we're ready to go? All
I think so, yeah. We're all here.
right, next we have 325 Fox Hill Road, Eastford Ho Country Club, map 10M, parcel 21, SE10 3618, golf course improvements including grading and invasive species management.
Good afternoon, Sean Riley, Coastal Engineering. Can you hear me all right?
You can.
And can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So Coastal Engineering is representing the applicant Eastward Ho for these golf course improvements. We've been working about a year and a half now with a golf course designer, Kyle Franz out of North Carolina, to really go back and look at the history of the golf course and the layout of the golf course, which has inspired some of these changes that we're proposing before you today. We met with the chair and Nikki sometime last year to give an initial impression and thoughts of some of the proposal that we're going to go over today. We made some modifications to that proposal to really limit some of the impact to the resource areas and also to enhance some of the buffer zones that we're going to show you today. With me is Seth Wilkinson from Wilkinson Ecological, Jeremy Schaub, and I believe Ian Peach from Wilkinson as well. Just give you a high-level look at what we're doing on the golf course, starting out by Jackknife Beach on 28. We're doing improvements along the coastline all the way from Jackknife Beach all the way along to the northeastern most point of Eastward Ho Country Club. This is a very different project for me. We're not proposing any structures. We're not proposing any utilities or any drainage infrastructure components. The bulk of the work that we're doing are T-box installation, conversion of fairway and rough to sandy native areas of planting, so-called SNAP areas. Bob Rawls helped us with that acronym last year, and we'll go over and get into what those are. The removal of invasive plants and the installation of native plantings, some minor grading throughout the golf course, and some reconfiguration of some bunkers. I'm going to jump right into what a sandy native area of planting is, because we're going to be referring to that quite a bit as I walk you through these different hole reconfigurations.
Hey, Sean, can I just,
Yes.
as you may or may not have heard at the beginning, we were on a really tight schedule, so
Yep.
just, again, assume that we've read,
Yep.
we had the site visit, we had the site visit, we read your stuff.
5 to 8 minutes. I just want to give the crowd, anybody that wasn't on the site visit, the ability to understand what we're doing.
Okay.
Yep. So these sandy native areas of plantings are planting areas with little blue stem, switchgrass, American beach grass, and crinkle hair grass. And those are throughout the course. This is what it typically would look like. And jumping through the proposal, we have tee boxes that we're adding over on next to Jackknife Beach, one of the restoration areas in between the two new tee boxes. Some minor grading out on the course within the fairway. We've got an area for a biofiltration retention area that we're looking to mitigate some of the stormwater runoff. We have, let me jump to the next page, which is on the next hole. One second. The biofiltration area. Adjacent to that, we've got an area of invasive removal and restoration behind this tee box. This is the top of Coastal Bank in purple. All the work that we're doing is, the majority of the work we're doing is within the 50 to 100 foot buffer zone. There is work in the 0 to 50. And we are doing some work actually on the Coastal Bank for the restoration work. None of the work that we're doing for the golf course modifications are actually within the resource area. They're all within the confines of the golf course. This is one of the areas, the sandy native areas of planting in here. We've got some regrading along with the side slopes. One of the questions was how much pavement are we removing? We're removing about 6,000 square feet of pavement with the removal of cart paths and converting it to these sandy native areas of planting. Some bunker reconfiguration, more restoration and mitigation along the top of the coastal bank. One of the biggest improvements that we're doing is the removal of the existing maintenance dump area where for decades they've been storing any of the debris that they accumulate from around the golf course, any construction debris. That will all be removed except for approximately a quarter to a third of that overall area will be removed and hauled off-site and converted to a 50-foot buffer of restoration plantings, 2 new tee boxes, one of those snap areas, and a vertical vegetated berm to differentiate the tee box from the maintenance area. Minor relocation of a tee box, some grading out in the fairway on 18, some minor reconfiguration of the bunkers on 18, more restoration up by the clubhouse and removal of invasive plants. While this is regenerating, we have over 50,000 square feet of restoration that the club is proposing to take on, over an acre of restoration. It's a very considerable size project. In this area, we're looking to remove a retaining wall, regrade, and essentially give back a large portion of area that the golf course is currently using as tee box in the way of restoration. This is one of the areas where we're removing that cart path and putting in one of the snap areas. Reconfiguration of the tee box to eliminate all this pavement in through here, give back the pavement on the backside, restore that, and alter the cart path to pull it away from the edge of the coastal bank to the midsection of these 2 tee boxes. There are some other minor areas of snap that are out in the middle of the golf course that are within the flood zone that are also part of this project's scope. And since a majority of you have already been out to the site, I'll open it up to any questions you may have.
Thank you, Sean. Seth, are you here to say something formal, or are you just?
I would just note that give you the quick breakdown of the 50,000 square feet of mitigation. That's in the form of 13,310 square feet of Japanese knotweed management, which represents all of the knotweed and jurisdictional areas on the golf course. We're very excited about that. 9,650 square feet of other invasive management, and then 27,040 square feet of transition to managed areas, from hardscaping, asphalt cart paths, into the creation of things like bioswales and snaps. So that's just a rough breakdown. It might be helpful.
Okay, good, thanks. We've all been there, we all saw it. Questions?
I have a comment.
Oh, you, except for
If
Elise.
that's okay.
Yeah.
I was not able to do the site visit because I had recent surgery, and I wanted to not only thank my colleagues for taking great notes and photos, but this was a very, very straightforward, dare I say, elegant plan to restore a course to what it used to be. I love the idea. I love the snap areas. I love that the asphalt's coming out, and I had very few criticisms, if any, at this point. So
Yeah.
I need to put that on the record.
I would just like to echo your comments. I think it's a fantastic plan. And there's obviously a lot of knotweed that needs to go. That is a huge job to undertake, and I'm happy to hear that someone's interested in doing it.
What were your criticisms?
Say again?
What were your criticisms? You mentioned criticisms.
I'd love to see all the asphalt go away.
Anybody else have commentary, questions? Well, Bob will go while Jen's.
I guess there are 3 large oaks that are going to be removed. And you say you're going to replace them with a 3-to-1 mitigation ratio?
That's correct.
And 9, so you're going to replace with 9 trees, 9 new trees?
That's correct.
They're pretty sizable, those trees. Where would you be putting the the new trees?
All in the same general area.
In that old dump area?
Yes, same.
That's correct. We could condition, Seth, let me just jump in. We could condition that they could be placed in the 0 to 50.
Okay. And the bioretention area, how will that be protected when, golf balls land in it?
That's a good question.
Yeah, it's a very, very good question. So essentially, it's going to be a very thick area. You're not going to see too many people going in there to even to attempt to look for the balls because of the high stand of grass, just like they have with the fescue areas throughout the golf course. So I think they're going to need to be strategic in their play and avoid the area. But essentially, it's just going to be tall grasses. There's going to be little blue stem switchgrass. There's going to be some warm weather grasses. So just like any other part of the golf course, it just becomes part of the play.
So as it's being established, maybe, can it be protected in some way?
Oh, yes. That'll be basically a no-play area. What they call it is a ground under repair area. They delineate those throughout the golf course whenever they're working on them. So this would be one of those ground under repair areas that no one would go into.
Okay, and there'll be appropriate signage?
Absolutely.
Okay. I think those are the main things I had. I think those are the things that I had for now. Maybe I'll come back. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Bob.
First off, thank you for the knotweed removal project. Now, we do appreciate that. 13,000 square feet. Just out of curiosity, how do you dispose of that much knotweed?
That's a good question. We do have our own facility, which is helpful. So we're going to make sure that it's completely.
What do you do to it
Bake it, basically. Yeah, really dry it out, turn it to soup. Leave it in a really hot, dry area, and then when we do take it away, it goes actually to a pit which has unfortunately an underground smoldering fire, which is also provides any additional thermal treating. So it's not great to have, but there is a disposal which has like old mulch that's smoldering, but that has the effect of thermally treating.
So that takes, even the seeds are taken care of then?
Yes, exactly.
So you do that, okay, well.
Double thermal treatment, I guess you could call
Double
it.
thermal.
Yeah.
I think that's sort of what we've heard of people putting it into black trash bags and leaving it out in the sun to have some of the same effect, but you still have something residue that you have to dispose of, which sometimes causes real problems. But at any rate, glad to see all that going. And I'm not going to say that I think that 100% of the other invasives should come out as well, although wouldn't that be wonderful? But I am curious about the area along the 15th hole where the mitigation is going in on the northern half of that part. No, there, yes, that one, where the mitigation area is marked there in green. Just to the south of that, there's an area above the coastal bank, below the top of the coastal bank down to the revetment, that I believe has a fair amount of invasives in there as well. And I wonder why the project wouldn't deal with that part, particularly since I think that might cause a risk to the mitigation that's going in adjacent to it. Could that, the other invasives that are along there be included?
So it was my intent to speak with the golf course superintendent when he comes back. He had left just after he had met with the initial group last Thursday and hasn't come back yet. So it is my intent to speak with him because I don't know why they wouldn't want to add that in to protect themselves from it coming back. So that is a conversation I am going to have with Frank Hancock.
Okay, I think that would be good.
So
I
this
think
is
it
the
would.
area that
yeah.
she's speaking of, this area in here.
Yep, I'm
Yeah.
familiar with it.
There are invasives in there. Okay, I just think that would be helpful to protect what you're doing. That's all I have.
Okay.
I had another couple of questions,
Okay.
quickly. The SNAP areas, before they are established, how are you going to keep golf carts off those areas? You know, where?
The same thing.
Okay.
They will all be managed, staked out and flagged off until those areas are established. There will be corridors and paths that are designated for traffic to go through while those areas are being established. It's just like any other part of the course when they have go through any kind of a reconstruction. They went through a big one in 2004, and it's really just education of the golfers and correct signage to keep people out of the areas that they want to grow in or to remain undisturbed while they're growing in.
Okay.
Just to
yeah.
follow up Bob's question, Sean, though, I thought I read in the application that golfers, when the SNAP areas are established, will still be able to go into them. Will they be able to drive their carts through them, for example?
They'll be, you can see in the background here, there are dedicated areas essentially that are just wide open sandy areas. And those areas would be signed for cart. So they're a hard packed sandy area that they can take the carts through to get them from different parts of the golf course. So they're going to be signed. They won't be driving through, and there are signs throughout the golf course to prevent them, golf carts, from driving through the existing fescue that's out there. Because once a cart drives through that fescue, it's damaged for the season. So the members are very aware of these areas because of the amount of fescue that's on the course to stay out of these areas. And it's highly frowned upon if anybody does or a guest does. So they do a very good job of managing course management and managing the areas that people are not supposed to go into.
But in reality, they could drive through there.
They could.
There won't be signs, for example, saying, do not drive through here.
There would be signs for certain parts of the SNAP areas.
Certain parts.
At the beginning, I would say that there's going to be a larger number of signs till people get acclimated, so that they're not driving through. You can see the fescue in the foreground here. They're driving through these areas that are not designated areas to be driven through. Just like the fescue areas that you see throughout the golf course in the background, these larger fescue areas, they do not there's signage that says do not drive in these areas.
So it's in the golf course interest, though, to keep people from driving through these, right? Because
Absolutely.
they're spending money on them, and they will not look like you want them to look if they continue to drive through them.
Exactly, and that's why they don't allow it.
Okay.
Is there an increase in, I know you're going to be adding some T sections. Is there an increase in manicured turf in the end?
No, there isn't. There's actually a decrease with the addition of these SNAP areas. There's a considerable amount that's being removed from the manicured areas and turned into what you're seeing on the screen now. So it's a considerable reduction of manicured areas as a result of this project.
And I know, generally, we require that no pesticides or fertilizers be used in the buffer zone. That's the elephant in the room.
You went there,
I
Bob.
think. I know, I guess you wanted me to ask the question, huh? So how do you get around that?
So I can speak to Frank, and he can provide you with his protocols. I know that on golf courses, especially a golf course like this, to keep it maintained, you do need some level of fertilizers to maintain it. Those fertilizers do cost a lot of money in their application, and I know that they manage them so that they are taken up. They don't want any waste, so they use them sparingly in the areas that they do use them, and they're not doing it prior to any rain events. So they do have a procedure and protocols in place, and they also have the longer, slower release nitrogen fertilizers that the commission requires. I can provide a protocol or have Frank provide a protocol of how their application is being managed.
As well as pesticide applications as well?
It's correct.
And as far as new irrigation, you don't see an increase in new irrigation, you see a decrease?
Correct.
Okay, one thought is, given the course predates the Wetlands Protection Act, because I believe this specific course is actually referenced in the act, it might be appropriate if Sean provides a baseline from Frank of this is what's happening, and then you just say no increase, right? So you're not allowed to increase your loads is one way it might be able to be addressed. Very early in my career, like last millennium, I was a regional planner, environmental planner at the Cape Cod Commission, and I do recall looking at the data on fertilizer and was always surprised that homeowners were way out in front because basically we don't know how to put fertilizer down. And ag and golf courses were much lower as far as pounds of nitrogen and all of the other amendments on an acre, pounds per acre basis, because, you know, again, they're not doing it for a green lawn, they're doing it for green turf, but they're doing it in a commercial enterprise, so they're much more careful and they use much lower amounts. I do recall that.
Is it possible to get that? I like that idea of establishing a baseline current loads and putting in a condition of no increase. Is that something that can be done in the next couple of weeks? You have that data? Good.
Should be.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Sean. I asked about getting their protocol at the site visit, and that would be very interesting. And I think it's relevant to this project because you have the bioswale, and you're basically focusing a lot of the runoff from the course into a concentrated point. And, what we want to prevent in any way we can is for that stuff to get into Pleasant Bay, which is just down the slope from there. Right. So any data we have that gives us assurance that as best as possible, as practical, we're trying to minimize that runoff, and this bioswale would help do that, then that's a good thing. It's a good thing for us to be aware of. So, this project overall is significantly improved from when I saw it last fall, and I'm happy to see all the changes. It wasn't a bad project then, but this is a much better project now. In fact, there are only 3 trees coming out, replacing them with the 3-to-1 ratio is good. Overall, there's a lot to like about the project, and I don't think that any of us are expressing any sort of red flag reservations about it. So, with
Any comments from the audience or?
Well, we have 2 people here, and,
They don't care.
and I'm looking online. Do you see any hands up, anybody? So, all right.
No hands are raised.
All right, so looks like it's got a green light.
I think we can provide you with that additional information for the work session. And then we could add those special conditions for replacement of the trees within the 0 to 50.
Right.
As part of the conditions.
Yes. I think I talked to site visit about just making sure we have a sort of a diversity in the trees that go in of those 4 that you have listed.
Are we saying that there'll be a list before the work session or at the work session of the sizes and the species?
Yes.
To make that a little bit
Yes,
more
we will.
diverse than they had?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And then the final location of the trees, again, we'll have the diversity and the numbers for you for the work session. And then as far as the location and placement, we can do that with the agent after the area is cleaned up and regraded to spot those trees.
Yep. Put that in as a condition. Yep.
Yeah. So we're talking about April 26th again.
Yep.
Are we full or not full?
Yeah.
Vicki, is that something?
I don't know exactly, but knowing that a lot of the ones from next week were also continuances and, likely they'll provide the information that we asked and then they'll be continued to the 26th for their order. So I wouldn't mind continuing some of the next couple to next week since we have a semi-light agenda next week, but that is up to you.
What do we do next week?
Another hearing?
It's ready for an order, right?
Yeah, maybe the following work session, I think she
May.
means.
as far as some of the next ones we're going to hear.
Oh, combined hearing and work session, maybe. I don't know.
Anyway,
Yeah, I mean, this one or the next couple, get some of them on next week's, I think, since we don't have too much new stuff.
I assume that you guys want to go to the next available.
Yeah, there's quite a few more steps internally at the golf course to get this underway really for next winter. So they were hoping to be on the April 26th if you could accommodate for it.
All right. Do what we can.
Or April 12th. I think that she meant.
That's what I'm saying, put them on April 12th.
Oh, I see what you mean. I see what you mean. Okay.
Do an order for April 12th next week?
Is that what you're saying, Nikki? Get the order done in a week?
Yes.
Or you-
I mean, that's the only one we'll have, so it won't be a lot of other it won't be, 15 orders that we're also trying to get ready. It'll just be, so far, just this one.
Okay, so let you draw short straws for it.
Yes.
I'll make a motion that we continue 325 Fox Hill Road to April 12th, 2023.
Gordon, second.
Roll call vote, Elise.
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Karen?
Great.
Aye.
And I vote aye. So,
Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome.
We'll
and thank
see you next week. Thank you all for your time.
Just fast-tracked it.
All right, so the next one is 61, I still don't know how to pronounce this, Elephanets?
Nobody knows.
Okay, good. Denise Ann Campbell and Mark W. Allen, map 16C, parcel 3614, SE 103619, replacement of an existing seawall, and he actually requested a continuance
Yes.
because he just wanted to iron out some more details for it's a kind of a complicated
Very good.
project, and he wants to combine the NOI that's coming with the enforcement order, or not enforcement order, emergency cert, so.
Yeah, tell him
he
to
wants
take as
continue-
long as he
Take his
wants.
time, take his time.
May 3rd, just.
Yep. May 3rd, 2023 is what he would like.
Yeah, what was the date again?
May 3rd, 2023.
Okay. Make a motion that we continue 61 Elephanets Lane. That's how I pronounce
Is
it.
that the correct pronunciation?
I don't know. To May 3rd, 2023.
Whatever.
Gordon, second, and I used to stay on Elephamet's Lane when I was a
Elephamets.
kid.
Elephamet.
I don't know if that's right, but
Say it all together. Say it together, alphabet.
That's 5 different pronunciations we've thrown out in 5 seconds.
All right, roll call.
aye.
Yes, I'll roll call vote. Cheryl?
Aye.
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 Shannon?
Aye.
Whatever. Mary? Karen?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
All right, next is 52 Ivy Hill Lane, David Whitcomb, map 8C, parcel S93, SE 103622, construction of a Title V subsurface sewage disposal system.
Good afternoon, David Clark Engineering on behalf of the Whitcombs. This is a failed system in need of upgrade. We looked at several locations to put the new system on the lot and settled on this one because it had the least impacts on the neighborhood and the resource areas. The resource areas are a coastal bank, and across the street there is an isolated wetland, but we're more than 100 feet away from that. Closest that the septic component is to the bank is 31 feet. The area probably was regraded back when the house was built 40, 50, 60 years ago. I'm not sure when. The underlying soils are all sand, so I don't foresee any issues with the installation. Given the topography of the site, I've included a construction access off of Indian Trail. It does cross the property line, which Mr. Whitcomb also owns the house next door. But there shouldn't be any alteration of the resource area on that lot. It's just construction access, and certainly it'll all be restored when construction's complete. The project required variances from the Board of Health, which we received Monday afternoon. So this is the last stop in the permitting process. No trees need to come out. One of the other advantages of this location, we did look at putting it in the rear of the house where there's an existing retaining wall, but that would mean regrading that whole area and installing new retaining walls right up against the property line, and we'd probably lose all the pitch pines that are on that property line. So that's why we chose the location. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, David. Questions?
Got a couple. Go ahead. David, the cedar where the access is, that cedar tree will be protected before construction? David, are you still there?
Perhaps not.
Yes, I am. I was muted, sorry. We can put some construction fencing around that prior to start of construction.
Okay. And also higher on the bank, there's some holly. It looks like it's been sheared, but will that be impacted at all? It's not native holly, but it is holly.
It probably will be if the Whitcombs don't want to keep it. Certainly, we could heal it in somewhere else on the property. Otherwise, just take it out and replace it with some native ground cover or shrubs.
Okay. Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Anyone else? Seems like a relatively.
I have one thing. It's Karen.
Oh, hi,
I just
Karen.
have a quick
Okay.
question. The tree that each field is dying and looks like it was recently cut, I was wondering why that was already cut, and yeah, it's still, I think, within the 100.
I didn't hear the question.
Did anybody hear it? I couldn't quite hear it either.
Yeah, there was a tree close to.
Bob is going to repeat your question, Karen.
Yeah, I think I know what you
Okay.
I know what you're talking about, Karen. There was a tree cut close to the current septic tank cover. Looked like already, probably to inspect the system. I don't know if you've seen it. There's like a fresh cut stump there now.
I don't have any knowledge of that.
So perhaps we can ask for some mitigation for that was cut as well, after the
Okay.
system is installed.
Okay?
Am I all right, Karen, with that?
Yes, that's what I was hoping for.
Yeah. Okay, so,
Okay. All right. So we would, in the order, ask for a tree for that cut tree. And what else?
maybe, if they can't save the holly, maybe replacement natives for the removed holly. And protection of the red cedar lower on the banking. So would we need some kind of a plant list or something, or would that be with the agent?
Yeah, I think, Nikki, I assume you would be able to point at different spots and say, there's a good spot for a,
Yeah.
yeah.
Sorry, the dog's barking at the neighbors.
So when we write the order, we can.
Yeah, I think just like a one-page narrative revision would be fine to say what plants are going in and figure out if they have a specific spot they want to put them or not. And then also, I think this one should maybe go to the 412 as well, because it's going to be pretty straightforward. And then the rest can go back onto the 426, just to get rid of a couple on what might be a lighter meeting.
Right. So you're asking for a revised narrative to address these mitigation?
Yep.
Yeah,
Just, just what is being replanted and the protection of the tree and just to address that, so it's part of the file.
does that sound okay to you, Dave?
Yes, yep, the sooner we can get an order of conditions, the sooner we can replace this failed system, so I'm happy with that, and I can add the protection for the cedar tree and a note regarding replace any vegetation removed with natives.
Okay. With a revised narrative, that's what Nikki is asking.
Well, I guess it can be either a narrative or a revised plan with the, plan notes. I'm fine with either one,
Yeah, I
whichever
think
one.
that might be more usable to update the plan itself.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we continue 52 Ivy Hill Lane to April 12th, 2023 for an order of conditions.
Gordon, second?
Roll call vote, Elise?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
All right, the next notice of intent is 676 Orleans Road, Chris Dietrich, Riders Cove Dreams LLC, map 12J, parcel 5, SE10 3625, raise the existing dwelling and redevelop property above the coastal bank.
Good afternoon. For the record, Thad Eldridge, East Southeast. Chris is here with us, the property owner, and Andrew Garolay should be on the line. So as Nikki stated, as you may recall, we were before you a couple of years ago, received an order of conditions to tear down, rebuild. After living in the property for a couple of years, Mr. Dietrich has realized that the views are much more splendid from where the house sits today. So the proposal is to maintain the same footprint and then build back towards the street with the proposed garage that they'd like to add on to the house. There is a substantial amount of work going on the property outside of jurisdiction. This is, just to go through the resource areas, we have the coastal resources down closer to the water, a little bit of beach, land under the ocean, salt marsh, coastal bank, floodplain. This is one of the funny lots where the ACEC is mapped on the entirety of the property. The written description of the ACEC would terminate right around where the 100-foot line is. I realize that that's not a great concern because we don't have performance standards yet, but it's one of those that we run into when we do get a regulation that deals with the ACEC, that we have to sort that out. So the proposed building within the 0 to 50 is no different. The existing patio would be rebuilt, slightly more pervious than the existing patio. There are a couple of walls up there. Those would be reconstructed. Then coming out into the 50 to 100, we have the generator, air conditioning units being proposed, the garage addition, heading out towards a septic system that is outside the 100-foot. This will be a denitrifying septic system. The existing pool will be reconstructed, basically in the same spot, and the carriage house or the garage that stands there now will be reconstructed. We have a planting plan proposed along with a mitigation plan, and we're meeting just over 1,000 square feet of area, where under the calculation about 930 square feet is required. And with that, if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Thad. I just want to start out with, I noticed in my notes that there was a similar project proposed, same site, a few years ago, and that just wasn't done. It was.
The project from a few years ago, we were proposing to remove the building in entirety and construct just about everything in the 50 to 100 or beyond. At that time, there were questions about the mitigation requirements, which we were pulling so much back that there should have been no mitigation required. So again, now we're looking at it through the client having lived here for time and realizing that pulling back will detract from the views.
Just to be clear, that project just simply never happened. We have an
Correct.
we have an
not
open
seen-
order for it,
Correct.
so we would need to close
We would.
that. And how would, so again, characterizing the difference between that and this is that you're not pulling back as much this time?
Correct. We're not pulling back at all. We have the
Not
same
pulling back at all, you're
footprint.
keeping the same footprint.
It's keeping the same footprint and then expansion within, we'll call it within the 80 to 100 foot areas is the expansion of the dwelling.
I guess we can't say we prefer the first one.
You can always say you prefer the first one.
We
We're
do.
proposing the second one.
We have an issued order that approves a plan that I
And he
think in
has a
some of our
special,
personal opinions is superior to what this plan is, because at least it moved everything out of the 50.
So you haven't withdrawn the first one, you haven't closed it.
no, haven't started it either.
You haven't started, no work has been done, and no work is going to be done on that.
And the special permit that was issued for the other one has lapsed. So, and this one, we will request a certificate of compliance based on not starting the project
Right.
in the process.
Okay. Well, we'll proceed from scratch then. Anybody want to start?
I'll start. Hi, Thad, how are you?
Great, how are you?
Good. There's a choke cherry, a cherry tree on the top of the bank, that's gonna be preserved, you say?
Yes.
And then there are a couple of oaks that are gonna be preserved as well? Or is that off the property?
There are oak trees that are off the property, and we have a couple of trees that are just outside the 100-foot that will be lost with this.
Yeah. But right on the bank, those two oak trees, those aren't on the property. Those are on the other, it looked to me that there were two oak trees that were on the property, but on the coastal bank, that have ivy growing up
They're
on
off
the trunks.
property.
Is that Andrew?
Yep.
This is Andrew. They show on my plan, and they are off the property. It's a little deceiving because the lawn for this property extends over the property line, so it makes it look like things that are toward the edge of the open area. It looks like they're on the property if you don't see any markers. But there are two oak trees, might even be three, that are to the left or to the west of, actually it's to the left, I think, of the property on the coastal bank. They are not on this property, and they are also not being removed.
Okay. The mitigation area is up against a lot of invasives. Why not remove the invasives along the coastal bank? There are some small cherries amongst the invasive vegetation that have been pruned down for the view. Why not remove the invasives along the coastal bank and, and plant new mitigation plants within that area that will not grow so tall?
It was not discussed to take on a restoration project, so we're removing lawn and providing the mitigation in the form of woody plants, not herbaceous perennials that were in the other plan. And the land goes up there, and because some of those plants on the coastal bank stick up rather high, it makes sense to use some woody plants because they're not going to impair the view any more than it is already impaired, which isn't really impaired because the house is up you know, at an elevation that looks right over all of that. So we weren't looking to start a restoration project. I wasn't asked to do that, and that's not something I do. So we provided the mitigation by removing lawn. Perhaps a homeowner might want to attack that later on, but at this point, we're providing new mitigation by removing lawn.
Yeah, it seems to me that the invasives will just spread into the new plantings. I think the better approach would be to restore that banking with natives, and then you wouldn't have the problem of pruning those down constantly.
I can discuss that with the homeowner.
And then there's an oak by the new driveway that's on the other person's property, correct, as well?
It is on the other people's property, correct?
And that's going to be retained, I suppose, too.
We're not touching it.
And then the red maple, unfortunately, will be removed, correct?
Yes,
By
and
the
it's
house.
and it's outside of the 100, correct?
Okay.
It's right in front of the garage doors.
Right. And it's too big to transplant.
That's correct.
Okay, that's all I had for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Just to follow up on Bob's question, can you characterize the vegetation that is between the lawn and on the coastal bank? Is it all invasive, for example?
We can certainly look at that and report back to you.
Because I share Bob's concern. We've seen it, and you've seen it. We've all seen it, where you put mitigation next to a sea of invasives. What's the point? A few years from now, you won't be able to tell the difference. Okay. Anybody else? I have other questions, but I just want to jump in on that one while we were talking about it. All right, well, I'll go. My other question, I guess this is for Andrew, is that a number of the mitigation plants in the mitigation area appear to be cultivars to me. They're not straight native plants.
In the mitigation area, they are straight native. I have two different.
I'm sorry, I meant in the foundation plantings. I'm sorry, you're right.
Yes, and the reason why they're not straight native is I was in a conservation hearing, I think it was the last time I was there, and we were discussing how many native plants to use around the foundation and all of that, and I said it's really difficult when we can't use varieties, and I believe it was Mr. Del Vecchio said, no, it's okay to use varieties around the house itself. And I also believe that somebody said and the plants could also just be native to Massachusetts. And I was surprised by that and made a comment, and everybody kind of responded. So I was pretty confident that that was the case, unless that's been changed.
I'm not sure if that's what you intended, Bob.
I can't recall.
Plead
the fifth.
He denies it. From my perspective is that we want straight natives in as many cases as we can. When it comes to foundation plants, especially if they're in the outer aura, we'll accede, in practical terms, to having a mixture of straight natives and perhaps some other non-natives. I personally think that cultivars are not natives, no matter whether they're cultivars, they're cross between natives and non-natives or not. I just don't consider them to be offering the same ecological value. They don't offer the same food value, and research shows that in many cases their seeds, et cetera, cannot be consumed by native wildlife. So I consider them to be non-native.
Whatever your policy is, I'm just, I went with it because I was
understand.
absolutely told that in a hearing. So
I
if
don't-
we need to change it to straight natives, we'll change them to straight natives. But honestly, I'm not making that up.
All right.
Because I was very happy about it.
Yeah, I don't actually recall that. I'd like to think that I would have recalled that statement, but nothing comes to mind. So we'll have to go back and look at it and see what was said, but
I'll look it up for you and.
don't mean to, we don't mean to jerk you around in all this, but in general, what we like to see are straight natives.
I understand that. It's a little bit difficult around the house, though, to be honest with you, because the straight natives, many of them grow quite large, and due to the windows and plant bed size and things like that, it's really hard to manage a landscape with all straight natives.
Because, yeah, understood. There are no compact varieties, which is what you get with a cultivar.
Right, and a lot of the varieties are not hybrids. They're actually selected cultivars that somebody found one that grew and stayed small, and they're selected that way. They're not all by hybridization. I think Mr. Delvecchio can back me on that. But, you know, and I don't have too many varieties in there anyway. I think my mountain laurel, my inkberry, a couple of other plants, but some of them are straight cultivars. If we need to make them straight cultivars, I'll change it to straight cultivars.
I would say that your foundation plants that are in the NDZ should be straight native, because they are in the NDZ and they just happen to be foundation plants. When we're talking about the outer aura, I think there may be room for negotiation.
Okay, I would be happy with that.
And that's my opinion. I only get one vote here, though, so.
Well, I'd like to get the project approved, so whatever we're gonna do.
Well, if you want to go back to the old plan and move the house back.
Yeah.
And you,
That would solve other problems.
sorry, back on track.
Okay, so, sounds like our only comments we have to do with your stuff, which is the mitigation part. Other than we would like for the house to be moved back like it was before. But it's, whenever it's in the same footprint, this is not unprecedented, and we see it a lot. You know, Janet wants me to stop talking. So. And there's nothing we, as you know, we can do to make you do it. It's just that we now know that it could have been, and it's unfortunate. So you have some thoughts, you have some work to do, I think, for your mitigation plan. So I think that will be substantial enough where we need to go to another hearing to discuss that. It's not something, this is just not a minor change. I think, for example, if you're going to be doing something with those invasives if those are invasives on the coastal bank, and if you have a plan to deal with those, and if that affects the amount of the mitigation that you're providing, then that changes your plan, I think, substantially.
Well, I know that there's some natives in there. It looks like that there was some previous mitigation in that area. I don't know that, I unfortunately, I don't have a list. I'm trying to look over my shoulder here at pictures that I have.
Well, I think it's fair to say that you don't, right now, really know the composition of the plant.
No, it's definitely not all invasives.
Okay,
There's
well,
probably some in there,
that's
but it's
good.
definitely not all invasives.
That's good.
And I don't, to me, it seems to me that we should be able to, if I change if I just take away the varieties from the plant schedule, I don't know why we wouldn't be able to approve the plan if that's what's holding it up.
Yeah, I agree.
Contingent
If
upon
we
the
start with that
change.
assumption, I agree with you. But, for example, Bob asked the question, and I agree with the question, how do we protect that mitigation from the invasives on the coastal bank? So how do we do that?
And if I may, we still have zoning board of appeals to apply for. So if we continue for 1 month, we can get you an inventory of everything on that bank.
That works.
We can get you a revised landscaping plan that shows straight natives.
Yeah.
And we can determine then if we're going to go forward with a restoration plan or continue with a mitigation plan.
Agreed.
Just another, just quick comment. It doesn't make sense to put new mitigation natives in front of a bank that's totally invaded
Understood.
with many invasives. I mean, there may be some bayberry, I think I saw, and some cherries that are being cut down to 2 or 3 feet. But I think the rest of it is pretty heavily invaded. Thank you.
All right, so we're looking at
Either the 3rd or the 10th of May.
3rd or 10th. Your point, your pick.
It's up to you.
It's up to us, okay? Nikki, what would you prefer?
We don't have anything on the 10th yet. We have 2 things on the 3rd. No, we have 1 on the 10th and 2 on the 3rd that we've continued, and we haven't had our deadline yet for May, so
I think
I
you should.
can't really tell you which one would be better.
Yeah, it's up to you.
Let's go for the first one, and then we're going to be quick because there aren't a lot of changes that we have to
All right.
make. So.
May 3rd. May 3rd.
3rd, yeah.
Make a motion that we continue 676 Orleans Road to May 3rd, 2023.
Gordon, second?
Roll call, Elise, vote.
Aye.
Vote.
Is that a work session?
Cheryl,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
I'm just confused. I think my calendar says it's a hearing, but
I think that's breaking down.
it's breaking down. Well, yeah, okay. Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
and I vote aye. See you then.
All right, the next one then is 65 Sears Road, Sears Point Summer LLC, map 11A, parcel 2, J14, SE 103518, phase 2, amended order of conditions. Proposed addition is being reduced in size. Porch will be exchanged for a trellis. Front entry will include a porch. Changes to the walkway steps. Side walkway is being removed. Shifting rent station to be outside of the NDZ, and trash enclosure is being relocated.
And good afternoon again. Thad Eldridge, East Southeast. Thank you for pushing this back, so you only have to see me once today. So the applicants had approval for, let's say, a substantial addition on the water side of the property. Once they started looking at it closer, they decided that they wanted something smaller. They've moved forward, they've started the construction on that smaller, as it's completely within the footprint of what was approved. But we are returning to you to modify the order of conditions to reflect that smaller addition, and then they'd like a porch out the front. With this, they didn't really like the trash enclosure, how it got so far from the door. They are proposing to relocate that pretty much where the rinse station is now. The rinse station, they'd like to push away, and so they'd also like a wooden deck. If the rinse station is within the 50 with a wooden deck, then it's required to have a special permit with zoning. So they're pushing that rinse station to be 50 feet from the floodplain coastal bank, which enables that wooden deck. The walkways change slightly so that they can have their access. We have a slight increase in the hardscaping within the NDZ. We did not really reflect mitigation because, as you may recall, this is, they're performing a restoration out here of the entire property. There's an approved plan from Wilkinson Ecological. I recall we had a good discussion about how to deal with the fence posts that they're taking down for the chain link fence that's being removed, or the remains of the chain link fence. Otherwise, we have a landscaping plan submitted, and if there are questions, I'm very happy to answer them.
Does anyone have any questions? It's a number of changes that's a little bit hard to follow. That's quite a bit. Okay, Janice raising, so I'll say it's more than just a little bit hard to follow. And so it's one of those one of those where we've had a number of changes, and it just makes it increasingly difficult to keep up with it.
We did attempt to highlight those in blue, what was previously approved, and then in the frame on the left.
Yeah, you did. And I saw that where you, in some cases, you put 2023 change, 2021 change, but in all cases, it wasn't done, and so that's when I sort of got lost.
Is the blue outline the
Right, what is the blue
new
stuff?
one? The newly proposed, or is that the approved in 2021?
The blue is the approved.
So is the patio shrinking in size? Is that, did we approve a patio that expanded the entire?
The patio is remaining the same size towards the water.
What is the blue, what are the blue lines then off the back of the house toward the water?
So the squiggly ones are the landscaping,
Ah,
which was
okay.
a little bit larger. That's pulling back a little bit, and it's all Cape Cod lawn out there otherwise. And then the addition that was approved is the octagon off the southwest corner.
The light gray and then the black line shows you the smaller
Yes.
size.
And rather than a porch out the back, it's going to a trellis, but it's all over patio anyhow, so it's.
What's the overall change in site coverage?
In the inner, it's increasing by 110. In the outer, it's decreasing by 370.
Why do I have an increase of 150 in the NDZ? Based on the charts. No, I can't find the charts.
Do you,
Here it is.
And that, take out the,
We have an increase of 150 square feet of impervious hardscape, and we have a decrease of 40 square feet in pervious
Okay.
hardscape, to make a total difference of 110 square feet.
Okay, so
they
110.
moved the rinsing station, I think.
Oh, right, the rincing station
It's the
moved.
40 square feet.
That's the 40.
There you
Well,
go.
that's building.
Sorry, I'm
Is that-
assuming.
No, that's
Is-
good.
is that
I
what
can
that
always
is?
use the help.
Okay, okay.
so where is the coverage table? Is it your coverage table or is it our, do we have it?
There's a coverage table on the second
It's on the
sheet.
On the,
bottom of the site, the bottom left of the site plan.
Okay, so you didn't actually submit a revised coverage table on
Yeah,
our.
here.
it's like,
It's here, it's in gray. That's ours from the filing, and that's what he does. He breaks it down more minutely. Getting them to match is always a challenge.
It's embedded in the plan, not as a standalone
Right.
update, okay. It would be helpful if that were
Separate.
separate.
Okay.
Because otherwise, we just have to go searching for it. Because I couldn't find it, and now I see it. Okay, concerns about this. The way I read it is that the addition is being reduced in size by some amount. Porch is being exchanged for a trellis. The front entry will include a porch. The walkways and steps are changing somehow in terms of coverage. I don't know.
Yes, the walkways are changing. In order to get around to the rinse station around the corner, that's going to increase slightly.
Slightly, okay, and that's reflected in your table.
So we have 110 square feet of increase in hardscaping.
Side walkway is being removed. Rinse station being shifted to be outside with NDZ. Trash enclosure is being relocated. So anyway, a lot of moving pieces, and all we can really focus on, I think, is the overall change in coverage, which is increasing in the
It increases by 110 in the NDZ. It decreases by 370 in the outer. And mitigation-wise, we're still 20 to 1, some
20 to 1?
They're performing a land management over the entire property.
Yes, I got it. Okay, so it's inconsequential in terms of the mitigation you're providing already. Okay.
Right,
You are increasing coverage in the NDZ,
yes.
which is, something we should be looking very hard at. And the reason you're doing that is?
That's for the walkway that comes around to the rinse station that's now going to go out of the NDZ.
So it's just the walkway,
Yes,
which is leading to a good thing, which is moving the rinse station out of the NDC. Okay, all right. Concerns? Looks like everybody's got it before I got it, but whatever.
Looks like we have
Well, no,
10 more minutes. to it.
Another, okay, I need to stop. All right, so are we good with this?
I think so.
Yeah,
All
I
right,
I think this makes sense.
I just have a question.
Okay.
On the landscaping, on the plant lists. Oak leaf hydrangea is listed as a native. And I have a couple things I want to say about that
Okay.
briefly. One is that it is not on the approved Barnstable County list of native plants. And that's because it actually is not native to the Northeast, it's native to the Southeast, Virginia, Carolinas, Georgia, down there. I believe we have approved it before, and I just want to be careful that we understand. I mean, having a bright line rule, if it's not on the list, it's not a native, it's not acceptable, makes life easy, but I don't know that it fulfills the mission of making the environment and the ecology of the area better. And the thing about the oak leaf hydrangea is that, one, as the climate changes and the zones and species begin to move northward, it is already doing pretty well in Massachusetts. I've seen it, I know it's around me here. The second thing is that, the reason that we want natives, for among other things, is that they don't require irrigation, fertilizer, and they are good for the wildlife. Oak leaf hydrangeas attract pollinators, and they're very good for the butterflies and the bees, which is an increasingly urgent thing. And finally, everybody in Chatham wants hydrangeas, so the more we can find acceptable variants of hydrangeas.
Native-ish.
Then, yeah, native-ish. Well, that's my next question. So I just want to make sure that we're clear that we should approve this, but we should do something about updating our list of approved species so people understand that we think that this species, for all these reasons, is an acceptable plant to have in this town. Because if we don't do that, they won't know. So, am I right about any of that, Bob? I wasn't, I was looking it up. I was trying to research, where it exactly.
It's a good point. It's a good point. My wife and I, who's a native plant maven, we've had the debate about oak leaves quite a bit. But
Yeah.
I agree with your overall assessment. Your bottom line seems to be,
We should allow it.
approve it
We should
here,
let
but we
people
should
know.
update our-
But we should need to update that. Now, we can talk, anybody, I'm happy to hear people say you're full of it. I'd like to know what native-friendly plants means. It's on the list, in the outer aura, native-friendly plant list.
yeah.
She has native plants, and native-friendly plants, and they are blue hydrangeas, sweet bay magnolia, and catmint. Or should we ask Bernice that?
We can certainly ask Bernice that. There was a landscape designer who's come in here many times, and she would always say, these are on the B list. Everybody plants them, they're not invasive or detrimental, but they're kind of a neutral. Your blue hydrangea that, like you said, everybody loves. I have the terrible task of telling people that when they finish their project, there won't be any blue hydrangeas on their property, and I get the, oh no, how can they do this to me? Everybody has the blue hydrangea. And Sweet Bay magnolia, there is a native magnolia variety.
I guess that's, my question is two parts, really. One is sort of, I'm interested in what she means by that, and whether or not we should be thinking about these plants in any different way. And secondly, the way she has it broken out, I can't tell what the proportion of native versus non-native, even if they're native-friendly, is in the outer aura.
Right, so native plants in 50 to 100, 224, 78%, 1,000 square feet, 62%.
Right, and so that, so 78, so 22% are these native friendlies? Or are there other things going in that aren't listed?
Believe everything that's listed is what's
Okay.
going in, but
All right, so we're,
I mean,
are we
this does get-
relitigating the project, the originally approved project here, or?
Is this originally approved, or is this a change?
This is amended.
Yeah.
This is
just
a change.
Yeah, this one.
Yeah.
But we're not really talking about
The plant lives.
the overall mitigation plan that we
Right.
approved before.
Okay, but she had, it's listed as revised in March of 2023, so I was wondering, I'm sorry if I'm going back and relitigating something that we've already talked about, but when I saw the update number, I just went in and looked
and
at
there's
it.
no need to litigate here, we just are discussing.
No, that's a bad use of that term. I apologize.
Since we have three
Okay.
three
All right, no, I just, it got my attention and I spent some time thinking about that, so.
How come you let her talk?
I said I would do
You
it
won't
in a
let me
minute or
talk.
less, and, oh no, now we're over. Okay,
Now we're over.
I'm done, I'm ready.
Okay.
All right,
Make a motion that we approve the minute order of conditions Phase 2 for 65 Sears Road.
do we have to
We have
send
to
this
send it
to
to
a
a work
date
session.
certain?
Work session.
So what date would that be?
Continue it, Nikki, to when?
Amended order could be probably 5/3?
No,
Isn't there,
5/24, I don't know, my calendar doesn't,
4/26.
4/26.
I think we closed that. It's full.
So far, we've only sent 4 there.
Yeah.
So
And
5/3?
there'll be some next week too, I guess.
So 4/26.
Yeah, 4/26, 26, I think should be fine.
Okay, make a motion that we continue 65 Sears Road to April 26, 2023.
Gordon, second?
Roll call vote, Elise.
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
And I vote aye. All right, so we are, thank you. We
are you
are
doing
now in
the
over.
certificate of compliance for 82 Jericho?
Yes, we are.
Okay, good.
82
state
Jericho Lane Certificate of Compliance for Oyster River Boatyard, map 10C, parcel 3, SE 102968, dredging. Work was never started. It was dredging around, I think, like the dock system, not like a channel dredge. It is my fault that it was so confusing last time. I was thinking outermost harbor, so I was looking at a bunch of emails about that, thinking there's no way we can approve this yet. But work was never done. Again, it was my mistake. I was thinking about the wrong harbor. So I recommend approval because work was never done.
Make a motion that we approve the certificate of compliance for 82 Jericho Lane.
Gordon, second?
Roll call vote, Elise.
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
I
Glad that's
didn't even
cleared
get
up.
to add my little sketch showing where it was. Thank you.
All right, so I do want to touch base on 107 Taylor's Pond, the enforcement order, Maria and Brian Donahue, map 4C, parcel T14, not complying with the restoration order that had been issued. So I know Jen Crawford and maybe someone else from Crawford are on the line, so I just didn't want to make them wait through the whole hearing. But basically the purpose, nothing new's been submitted, but I wanted to show that they were making a good faith effort and that, there's contracts and stuff. So I don't know if Jen wants to give a brief update on kind of what's going on with that project.
Sure, no problem. So we were contracted for this job the end of March, on the 27th, I believe. It has been put on our implementation schedule for I think we're into a couple weeks in April, or towards the end of April. We have 4 days planned out for the initial implementation work, and then 2 to 3 weeks after that, towards the end of May, we are looking to complete the planting work. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes from our contract here. We have 3 days on our schedule for the planting work. We've also been contracted to complete the temporary irrigation for the project, as well as 3 consecutive years of maintenance, so 2023, 24, and 25. In addition, we are contracted to provide the monitoring reports, as well as any additional consulting work or time necessary to keep Nikki in the loop, or to complete any of the other administrative requirements of the project, or that you as the commission request. So we are contracted, it is on our schedule, and we did get contracted for the entire scope of services, so to speak. So that's pretty much my update at this point. But if you have any questions, I can try to answer them.
Are you going off the previously approved plan and not making any changes, or do you think you'll come back and say, oh, we want to change a couple things here and there?
So from what I know, Nick is the one that actually did the site visit to complete the pricing on the job. But from what I know, we are going by the approved land management and restoration plan submitted and approved by Blue Flax. I know that with this particular project, there is a pre-construction meeting, Nikki, that we have to set up with you. So I would anticipate that if there are any minor changes that we find that we want to recommend, those would be things that we would discuss with you at that time. And if for some reason they were deemed to impact the overall project, then those pieces, my assumption would be is that we wouldn't do those without coming back in front of the commission, but we would proceed with everything else that we could do per the plan.
Okay, thank you, Jen.
Yep.
And then, so I'm looking at your plan notes, and it does seem to follow along quite well with the originally approved plan for this, which was, for those of us who weren't around when this happened, this was a violation where 62 trees were cut down on a coastal bank, or on a bank, and the period of time expired for work to begin, and now, so the town had to send a letter out. And now Crawford's on board, and I'm glad to see it. And I'm hoping that we are back on track.
We'll certainly do our best.
Thank you.
Okay.
So what do we do here, Nikki? Do we have to?
It wasn't really any actions we have to take. It's basically just showing that while yes, she is a year behind on getting all this done, the homeowner has contracted with someone we know will do a good job, and just basically just showing that there is official effort going into getting this resolved. So I just wanted to do that so that we aren't thinking, oh, now we need to fine her because this stuff isn't being done. So she is making an effort. She has contracted someone. I've seen the official contract with her signatures. So that's basically, it's just an update saying that I don't think we need to do any further action at this time. If, say Crawford ends up being off the job and that kind of thing again, then we can deal with that then. But as of right now, it looks like it's moving forward in the right direction.
Right, okay, agreed. So we'll just wish you good luck and hope to hear from you as you get a closer look at it.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Yay,
Thank you.
finally.
All right, so hearing schedule changes, as you guys have figured out, I am all for every hearing being the same, having all applicants or all applications that can be on a hearing that are submitted by the deadline be on the next available hearing. So I don't want to get too far into this because I assume Channel 18 will yell at us if we go
Pretty
too much
soon,
longer.
they're starting to look at it.
They're giving us
So
the
I did reach out to the conservation agent mailing list, and almost all of them have everything on. The John Janelle, and Barnstable's different because they're huge, so I'm not even going to consider them. They're so different than Chatham. But the Orleans, Harwich, Brewster, Dennis all do 2 hearings a month with everything on it. Orleans actually meets 4 times a month, but it's on-site visits, they're off weeks, kind of like a work session in the field, if you will. And a couple of the people said the only issues they've had is, yes, sometimes you get a ton of new NOIs when you've continued a bunch of stuff to the next hearing. But generally it evens out pretty well. So I have compiled their responses in a Word document, so I'll just send those out. So you can read what their comments and concerns are. Everyone has the same issue. Everyone's confused, or not confused, but trying to figure out the best way to make hearings less than 3 hours and, be the most efficient as possible. So I'll send you all their comments and we can put this on the next agenda. Hybrid meetings have been extended to 2025, so we're going to continue the way we are for now, unless you have other comments.
I have a question about that, Nikki.
Yes.
So part of the original emergency order was a waiver of the 21-day deadline between
Submission?
between submission and opening a hearing, and between closing a hearing and an issuance of an order. Do you know if those if those waivers are still good, or had they stopped?
No, those are gone when the emergency order was over. But they're continuing the hybrid meetings because I think most towns and boards have found that it's kind of what they want.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, just wanted to know about that.
And the only other issue, I've raised this issue with you, Nikki, and that is if we go to this sort of hybrid model where we meet 3 times a month, just as we do now, but we have a mixture of NOIs and orders. The question is whether or not we will be able to televise 3.
Oh, yeah, sorry, that reminds me. So I talked to Dr. Duncanson, I think that was questioned, and he had no problem with this new, we hear all the different types of applications on every hearing. So he had no problem with that. He thought it was efficient. And then we reached out to Channel 18, and they said, as of now, there are no meeting conflicts. So we could be in the big room, all 3 meetings.
And they will be able to televise all 3 meetings?
I believe so.
On Channel 18, okay. Because when I talked with them right before the meeting, I'm not sure that I got the same reaction. So. But that's good to hear, and I hope that works out that way. All right. May I suggest, Nikki, is it important that people are starting to file into the room for the next hearing, or do we need to, can we put off doing the minutes?
That's a tricky question. There's been maybe a complaint or something that the minutes aren't getting posted fast enough.
All right.
Not particularly.
That was Karen.
She's
She's not here.
That was us. Yeah, that was us.
That was us.
So.
It was me.
There you go.
I'll own up.
I just think we're running out of.
Crystal's defense, these are 4-hour meetings. She has been taking on some of my extra workload since I haven't been able to be in the office for months. So that's why we may be a little bit behind. We do have legally 3 months to get the minutes posted. So we are only a little bit behind as far as legal goes. But obviously you want them sooner, and Dr. Duncanson asked that we try and catch up and be maybe only one meeting behind or so. So
That'd be great.
We'll get there. One thing we can do, so you have them in the Dropbox, so I already went in and added my corrections and comments.
That's what
We could all do that.
That's what I was going to recommend. I did the same. If we could all just go into Dropbox, make any comments we had directly in there,
Okay,
And that'll make it all go much faster.
just do it.
all right.
yeah, or email them to me, and we discussed the changes, but no one's ever said really objectionable things to what someone has asked to be changed. So I don't think it would be a big issue to go ahead and vote with approval, incorporating the commissioner's changes.
Right. They're typically typos or just like an additional comment or two. I said this instead of that. Things like
Right.
that. All right. So let's all do that. Make any edits to the Dropbox copies by this week, by the end of the week.
Yep.
And then we're done with that. Then I guess we would have to approve them next time.
We're gonna do it next week. Yep.
All right. And with that, anything else? And if not,
Make a motion to adjourn.
Gordon, second?
roll call vote, Elise.
Aye.
Cheryl.
Aye.
Bob.
Aye.
Janet.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
Karen.
Bye.
And I vote aye.
And I just arrived at my place.